Romanian Eagle. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1. A different Hohenzollern family. In 1905, the spring breeze blew through the Ploiesti castle, and all things were revived, and the grass was growing happily. Suwen watched all this, and was not at all unfamiliar with it. Of course that's because Suwen has lived here for 16 years now. Looking at the luxuriously decorated castle, Suwen once again felt unreal. Now he is the son of King Carol of Romania, a man who has never come back in history. Edel Hohenzollern. Sigmaringen. This is Suwen's current full name. Because the Romanian King Carol came from a side branch of the German royal family, Suwen also called William II his uncle. Point in this world, I have rights in life that are unbelievable for ordinary people. And I can rewrite and influence history. This kind of life is quite good. Suwen smiled slightly, but now it is necessary to increase Romania's strength. A young country that only became independent. Romania exports agricultural products and primary minerals. It does not have its own industry. The military industry can also make some light weapons. The output is not high. It is quite famous for oil. Sorry, it is still in Ploiesti. There are several small oil fields there. It's pretty primitive, and it looks good in the Balkans, but it's pretty ugly if you want to get some benefits in the first battle. Now it is time for Our Highness Edel to prepare for this. In general, Romania still has great potential for development, the young prince commented, after learning about Romania's situation for 3 years. The main thing is that the Romanian royal family is very rich, although the government's finances are not very good. But who makes this a monarchy? Now first of all, he needs to convince his father, Carol I, who is 66 years old, to take the money. Father, this is a report on the large-scale exploitation of the Ploiesti oil field, according to which we need to buy oil extraction equipment, a large oil refinery and an oil pipeline linking to Constanta. It can produce 1.5 million tons per year. The scale of crude oil requires a capital investment of about £3 million. Edel sent a report to his father, Carol I of the Kingdom of Romania. The white-haired but still majestic king slowly turned a few pages without responding, but looked at Viscount Adri, the court chief next to him. The latter are responsible for the main day-to-day work of the Romanian royal family, and therefore have specific knowledge of royal funds at present. Apart from the maintenance of a few castles, we must keep enough funds in £5 million, of which 200 are bonds, but the king has 58 properties in the country and 43 properties abroad. Except for the necessary ones, which can be sold domestically. The second place can get £840,000, and the 26 foreign places can get £1.04 million. There are also some shops. We get £1 million a year from government and industry, but the bulk of our property is land. Carol I waved his hand to stop, and asked the crown prince, how much do you need? Edel replied, I'm going to look for US Standard Oil 600,000. They will be interested, and then go to Germany to pull 600,000. I believe they also want to invest. We only need 1.8 million pounds, and the land is still ours. They can't get too much shares. Carol nodded with satisfaction. You just let it go, and I'll let Edri prepare the funds for you. Thank you, father, Edel said and walked out. Edda, who has now obtained the consent of his father, is in high spirits and asks the guard to find Mr. Smith, the head of Standard Oil in Romania. The next day Smith took his assistant to Fort Ploiesti to meet Edda. Hello, dear Prince Edel, do you know what Standard Oil can do for you? Smith and his assistant asked after saluting Edel. You know about the Ploiesti oil field. Our country plans to exploit it on a large scale, so your company should be interested. Yes, we are very interested in this. I don't know how the Crown Prince is going to develop your country's oil. Smith replied, before the First World War, with the large-scale application of internal combustion engines, the demand for crude oil in Europe also increased on a large scale, and the oil price also increased slowly. Standard Oil had an investment in Ploiesti as early as 1871. However, because of the intervention of the Romanian government, this scale is not large. Now Romania wants to develop its own, so the profit of investing in it is also very considerable. Edel asked the guard to give Smith the contract. You can take a look at it first. Smith took the document and saw that the development of the Ploiesti oil field was led by the Romanian royal family with an investment of £1.8 million and an exploration license plus 70% of the land, and Standard Oil invested £600,000, accounted for 15%, and invested in technology, extraction equipment and oil refining facilities. The Standard Oil Company is preferred for the same quality and price. Looking at the contract, Smith felt very reasonable. His Royal Highness Edel, I will send this document to the company. From my personal opinion, I think there is no problem. Hopefully Mr. Smith will bring good news, knowing that there will be interest in the UK, France and the Netherlands. His Royal Highness Edel, I will send it back to the company as soon as possible, and Standard Oil has the best technology. I believe this is a wise decision. Smith obviously has full confidence in his company. Smith went back and telegraphed his company. Edel asked the guards to invite the German ambassador, and he had full confidence in whether Germany would invest in this oil field. Edel, if it is not for their own lack of funds, they will not allow other countries to invest at all. Both Standard Oil and Germany were handpicked by Edel. One where the US had little influence on Europe before World War I. Germany was laying the groundwork for later plans. Borges, Germany's ambassador to Romania, is as serious and punctual as most people's reflections of Germany, but sometimes know how to work around. Is there something wrong with His Highness Edel? Ambassador Borges asked the Crown Prince. We plan to develop the Ploiesti oil field. Do you know if your country is interested? I don't know how your country plans to develop it, Borges asked a little uncertainly. Edel had someone hand the contract to the ambassador. With a total investment of £3 million, the Romanian royal family contributed £1.8 million and land and influence accounted for 70%, and Germany contributed £600,000 to get 15%. It looked like a good investment that only took a few years to pay off, thought Ambassador Borges. There is no problem with this. I believe our government will give an answer soon. Ambassador Borges has one more thing. Your Highness, please say I hope to visit Germany, mainly to buy some equipment and technology. This is good news for Germany, whose economy has just improved at this time. PS This is the first time I write a book, hoping to satisfy everyone. The author is a handicapped party. The code word is super slow, so it is a bit difficult to update the amount, but as long as readers like it, the steamed bread will be finished. Absolutely not a eunuch. Steamed buns can be regarded as self-feeding. As an old bookworm who has read books for 11 years, he can't find books to read. Gradually, in the end, he gritted his teeth and stomped his feet and wrote it himself. It was considered to be a shareholder by speculating in stocks, a landlord by speculating in real estate, a husband by picking a girl, and an author by reading and reading. It's like you're stuck. Chapter 2 Procurement on. Soon the German side responded and agreed to the investment, and sent an invitation to visit Crown Prince Edel. Standard Oil was quicker than Germany to agree to the contract. So in April 1905, the Romanian Oil Company was established. The total share capital of £300 was 60% for the royal family, 10% for the Romanian government, 15% for Standard Oil, and 15% for Germany. For this matter, the British and French ambassadors have approached the Crown Prince, hoping to contribute money to join. The Crown Prince, on the grounds that there is enough money now, refused, but when he left the expansion, he gave priority to Britain and France to be appeased. Now Edel plans to go to Germany. This visit is very important to Romania, but it is necessary to get an agreement with King Carol before again. The situation in Europe should be increasingly tense now. France and Germany both regard each other as a serious concern. Although Russia is fighting in the east, it must also see that France's economic assistance to Russia continues. No matter whether Russia wins or loses, France will use capital to the reins, pulled Russia to its chariot. In addition, the agreement with the UK was signed last year. Britain, France, and Russia are moving closer, although the United States and Britain are supporting Japan against Russia. After all, Europe is the core of Russia. If something happens, Russia will join the war. Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy. The three emperors' alliance will not back down, especially in the Balkans. Austria-Hungary and Russia have too many interests entangled. Once an accident occurs, it will be a war in Europe. For us, Romania, whether it is self-protection or fighting for interests, it has always been strong. The army is indispensable. This requires good industrial support. In the king's office, Edel told the king and the prime minister about his purpose of going to Germany. Both King Carol and the prime minister were very happy to have such an opinion on the crown prince. My Edel, when you grow up, feel free to do it. It will be your young people's world from now on. A few days later, Crown Prince Edel got on the train to Germany, accompanied by the military generals and government officials. General Prezhan has a wealth of military literacy and excellent command skills, and is the help King Carol needs to prepare for Edel to control the army. The train passed through Austria-Hungary and soon came to Berlin, the capital of Germany. Getting out of the car and seeing Crown Prince William Ence welcoming them, Edel stepped forward and gave the Crown Prince a hug. Cousin William, didn't expect you to come back to pick me up. After all, you can come now to support us. The Hohenzollern family is still very united. The Crown Prince patted Edel on the shoulder. Edel knew that what the Crown Prince was talking about was the first Moroccan crisis, and almost all countries did not support the Kaiser's demands in this crisis. For the visit from Romania, William II considered it to be support for his reasonable request. In fact, this is also the reason why Edel chose this time to come. At a dinner for Romania in Charlottenburg that evening, Edel and Crown Prince Ence were having a friendly exchange. At this time, the duty officer came in. His Majesty Wilhelm is here. At this time, everyone took up to greet the German Emperor, and then Wilhelm II walked in front of the Crown Prince and Edel. Welcome to Germany, Edel. I'm very grateful to Uncle William. I can feel the wealth of the powerful German people here. All this was achieved under the leadership of my uncle. Edel flattered a little. No, this is the result of the people's efforts. Obviously, the Kaiser was still very clear-headed, and he was not interested in this flattery. Edel took out a letter and handed it to the Kaiser. This is what my father gave to your uncle. I'm sorry for not being able to come this time. The Kaiser took the letter and walked out of the banquet hall. Obviously, the Kaiser came here to show German-Romanian closeness. Then the banquet continued, but no one cared about drinking, and they all chatted about their own topics in a low voice. The German Kaiser looked at King Carol's letter and pondered slowly in his heart, and Prime Minister Bernhard was silent. Since Prime Minister Bismuth stepped down, other prime ministers have become puppets of William II, and now facing the large loan from King Carol, the Prime Minister does not dare to express his views at will. The Kaiser himself could not make up his mind. The next day the Kaiser summoned important ministers. The Prime Minister told everyone. Morch said that, if Romania can be drawn into the alliance, then he is fully supported. The Minister of Industry also supports that this is very good for the economy. The Chancellor of the Exchequer is very opposed to this, which will increase the country's deficit. The capitalists and factory owners knew in less than half a day that Romania was going to borrow money to buy German machinery and supplies. At this time they also exert their influence. Finally, after 3 days of discussions, the Kaiser finally agreed to the loan. Edel took General Prezhan to Charlottenburg Palace to see William II and Prime Minister Bernhard after mutual insistence. Uncle, this is our purchase list for this visit. Edel took out a document and gave it to William II. In the letter from the old King Carol, the Kaiser did not mention anything to buy. The old king reiterated his obligations to Romania after the Three Kings Alliance and his support for Morocco-German rights. The most important is a loan of 250 million gold marks, mainly used to buy German machinery, technology, and arms. 20-year loan repayment after 5 years, secured by Romanian customs and mineral taxes. In order to pull Romania into the chariot, I finally agreed. I looked at the purchase list. I started mainly in the military industry, chemical industry, and emerging internal combustion engines, a 200,000-ton steel factory, and purchase Morse 98 rifle technology, G08 heavy machine gun, 105 light howitzer, Nub 150 heavy howitzer, 210 heavy cannon, etc. After reading it, the Kaiser handed it to Prime Minister Bernhard, who will discuss the next details. Crown Prince Edel. There is no problem with the military-industrial government. You only need to find Morza and Nubber, and I believe there will be a satisfactory result. For chemical industry, you can find Farben Chemical, and the internal combustion engine is no problem, 200,000 tons. Steel mills? The Crown Prince has not heard that there are coal and iron minerals found in Romania. Is it too expensive to import them? At the end, Prime Minister Bernhard asked with some uncertainty. Yes, we intend to put this steel plant in Constanta and use sea freight to reduce costs. Edel responded to Prime Minister Bernhard. Who would have thought that Romania has no coal and iron mines? Eastern Ukraine has abundant coal and iron, so Russia has become a success, and Bohemia also has Austria-Hungary, not to mention that France and Germany fought a war for it in the Ruhr region. Ready for the second round. There is still a third round waiting in the future. Edel also had no choice but to build, and could only rely on himself. Thinking of China in later generations, East Ukraine is not far away, the freight is not too high, and there are also many Ottoman iron ore. Chapter 3 Purchasing. Edel discussed the details of the list with Prime Minister Bernhard. Capitalists who get news outside the palace are like sharks smelling blood, ready to distribute this delicious cake. The most important ones were taken by Morza, Krupp and Farben Chemical, and the rest were divided up by others after 10 days of negotiation. The military part of the payment finally spent 120 million marks on the construction of an annual output of 100,000 Morza 98 rifles, 1,000 G08 heavy machine guns, 105 light howitzers, 55 150 heavy howitzers, 210 cannons, 50 million rounds of 7.92 rifle ammunition, 50 million rounds of machine gun ammunition, and a large-scale comprehensive arsenal with 60,000 tons of various explosive shells. The plan is to be fully put into use in 3 years. The chemical industry spent 60 million yuan to build a dye factory, a sulfuric acid factory and a pharmaceutical factory. The main purpose is to build a large potash fertilizer plant and to develop Romanian potash mine in depth. And it has a very good role in promoting agricultural production, and it is planned to be completed in 3 years. Other internal combustion engines, locomotives, steam turbines, the arms of a division of the power plant, etc., add up to 70 million marks. The news of Germany's large-scale payment to Romania quickly spread throughout Europe, and countries expressed their unease about Germany's wooing Romania. The British Times wrote that the Kaiser's payment once again showed that this European order disruptor has been looking for allies. Once the power of the three emperors alliance exceeds that of the Franco-Russian alliance too much, war will come. Britain should play an adequate role in this. The French president and his staff were discussing the possibility of forming an alliance with Dero, and it was the consensus of France that Russia should turn its attention back to Europe as soon as possible. Franz Joseph I of Vienna and his ministers discussed the implications for Austria-Hungary. If Romania were to be drawn into our common alliance, it would be a heavy blow to Russia's influence in the Balkans. By cutting off Russia's land connection to the Balkans, the empire's actions in Bosnia-Herzegovina should also be accelerated, Franz Joseph I said decisively. Although the war against Japan continued, Nicholas II also discussed with the important ministers the influence of Germany's payment to Romania. We can't let Romania be pulled away by Germany, otherwise our European borders will be extended by 1/3, and the army will have to expand. The most important thing is that the influence of the empire in the Balkans will be greatly reduced, which is quite unfavorable for us. Jilin, the military representative Sky, expressed his opinion. Do you still want to expand the army? The treasury has already asked for money, and even the current Manchurian war is about to be unsustainable. The Minister of Finance heard the military's military expansion speech. Let France join us to put pressure on Romania. Now the Huang Manchu plan must be successful, and let these Japanese monkeys know about Russia's power. After the war, troops are dispatched to Bessarabia. I believe this will make the Romanians wake up. After purchasing the equipment and materials from Germany, Edel said to General Pleschen, the general heard that Denmark has produced a 9-kilogram Madsen machine gun. I hope you can check it out. If the reliability is good, I would like to give the platoon add some equipment at the first level. As you wish, His Royal Highness. I will truthfully reflect this weapon. As a soldier, General Ploiesti would not refuse any increase in the strength of the army. How about the cooperation between the German military? The additional condition of this payment is to send students to study at the German military academy, and Germany will send staff to help Romania rectify the bloated army and optimize the command structure. Edel was well aware of Germany's desire to command the Romanian army in wartime. However, it will not be Germany's final decision to get on or not to board the ship at that time. It's basically settled. Every year we send 300 students to study in Germany, including 100 for 1-year programs, 154 3-year programs, and 54 5-year programs. The German General Staff will send a 57-member advisory group. Gillis, General Tar is the head of the regiment, will go back with us. 4 days later the advisory group met with Edel. Captain Gillister is going to trouble you this time. His Royal Highness, we will fully understand the problems of your country's military and give reasonable suggestions. Gillister said to Edel seriously. This is Lieutenant Colonel Ludendorff, the deputy head of the regiment, a very talented colleague. Previously worked in the general staff. Edel paused, watching Gillister pointing at a middle-aged man in his 40s next to him, thinking that he was indeed very talented. Edel and Ludendorff shook hands. Welcome to Romania. You can come to me if you have any difficulties. Thank you, His Royal Highness. We will complete the work conscientiously and satisfy His Highness. He entered the General Staff Department in 1894, was well appreciated by Schlieffen, and participated in the revisions of Schlieffen's plan. Last year, he was transferred to the 2nd Department in charge of training and mobilization, which was highly appreciated by the Kaiser. For such a promising person, the Kaiser's eagerness to win over Romania can be seen. In early June, Edel and his team of consultants returned to Bucharest. Prime Minister Stuart greeted Edel and his party after arranging the departure of the German advisory group. His Royal Highness Edel, because both the French and Russian ambassadors have come to ask us whether we have signed a covenant with Germany and is deeply disturbed by our relationship with Germany, that is too close, and the United Kingdom has also expressed deep concern. Stuli, the Prime Minister, was a little uneasy about the recent situation to the Crown Prince. Prime Minister, please rest assured, this is just a loan and we have not signed any alliance agreement with Germany. Edel said insincerely, this is because King Carol told Edel before that they had signed a defensive contract with Austria-Hungary treaty. The treaty was fairly secretive. Neither the Parliament nor the Prime Minister knew about it. Only Edel told him before he went to Germany. In this very favorable treaty for Romania, if Russia declared war on Romania, Austria-Hungary and Germany would declare war on Russia. And Austria-Hungary and Germany declared war on Russia, then Romania can decide whether to declare war on Russia. Back to the palace to see Caroline. This is a good job, Edel. The old king praised Edel. This is inseparable from your support, father, Edel said modestly. For this large loan, Edel mainly relies on the memory of his previous life. For a small country, it is difficult to borrow money at one time. This share, but if you borrow and spend it locally, then the money is much better. It just so happens that Germany has the military chemical internal combustion engine and other equipment and technologies that Romania needs. Edel, go see your mother. She's been reading to me many times during your absence. I'll go see her now. Edel nodded to his father and walked out of the room. Chapter 4 Housework. Where is my mother? Edel asked Karist, the captain of his bodyguard. As the second son of a small nobleman, he has a good education and was taught etiquette by his mother since childhood. At the age of 15, he attended a military school, and at the age of 21, he was appointed as a company commander in the Imperial Guard Division. Loyal to the royal family, he was favored by King Caroline and was chosen as Edel as the captain of the bodyguard. His Royal Highness, the Queen is drinking afternoon tea in the garden. The captain of the guard Karist said solemnly. Since he became the crown prince and chief guard, Karist has always demanded himself with court etiquette. He has also meticulously completed what Edel asked to do, and is usually taciturn. It is a confidant that makes Edel very satisfied. June is the season of lush foliage and flowers. Edel walked to the garden and watched Queen Elizabeth chatting happily with a group of ladies. My Edel, you are finally back. You are still so young. Your father will let you visit alone. Queen Elizabeth obviously expressed dissatisfaction with Edel's visit to Germany. It was obvious that General Prezhan and a large group of government officials were arrested. Ignored. Mom, haven't I come back? And I'm not too young, I'm an adult at 16. Edel obviously resisted her mother's words. My Edel, as long as I don't get married for a day, it's my little Edel. Apparently Edel's struggle was ruthlessly suppressed by Queen Elizabeth. It seems that mothers of any era are the same. He is very concerned about the marriage of his children. Even if Edel is really young, it is obvious that the reason does not make sense. The ladies listened to the conversation between Edel and the Queen and laughed madly. His Royal Highness Edel, do you need us to help you find some maids to sleep in? A daring lady also teased. Yeah, each of our families contributes a maid, and it is estimated that His Highness Edel will be too busy. We will find a perfect maid for His Highness Edel. His Royal Highness Edel can seriously consider our proposal. Obviously there was a beginning, and the lady behind bombarded Edel with full fire. Mother, let's meet. Edel whispered to Queen Elizabeth, who was also laughing, and then fled. It seems that women of any era are so terrible to gossip, even if she is an aristocrat. In the evening, the three Edel family were having dinner. Mother Queen Elizabeth looked at Edel and said with a smile, I didn't expect my Edel to be afraid of women. You have been laughing all afternoon about this, mother, and I was joking when I saw those ladies. Edel said with a rogue face. Edel, you can't do this. In the future, as a king, you can't be suppressed by women. Karolai also raised his opinion. Clearly, being a conservative Prussian royal family, King Carol had to correct any possible fears of Edel. Queen, stay for a while, it's time to find a dorm maid for our Edel. I believe that, if he has been nourished by women, he will grow up. Karolai was still thinking of a way to say to Queen Elizabeth, before going to bed, I will pay attention, but do you have a good choice for Edel's marriage? It seems that the Queen's words in the afternoon also have deep meaning. The current situation is very difficult to choose. The old king said with a bit of a rogue point, you can find a noble woman of the right age in the country. We are also old. I really hope that Edel will get married sooner. The Queen asked a little reluctantly. Those nobles in the country can't do it. They won't be of much help to Edel's future rule. And it's better to have a royal marriage. He can wait a few years and see. The old king said slowly. The next day, the captain of the guard, Karist, came to Edel with a telegram. His Royal Highness, this is a telegram from Denmark from General Prezhan. Edel took the telegram and looked at the message above. It turns out that General Prezhan soon saw this Madsen machine gun in Denmark. For the current mainstream 30 kg Makin heavy machine gun, the 9 kg Madsen machine gun is an epoch-making masterpiece. Although its range and rate of fire are far less than that of Mark Hekin, but can follow the soldier's charge. General Prezhan, as an experienced commander, is impossible not to see. The tactical changes after the installation of this machine gun is also worth thinking about by the general. However, the epoch-making masterpiece also has an epoch-making price. The selling price of up to £45 also makes General Prezhan a little big. This can buy 6 Morse 98s. If it is installed in the platoon, its ammunition consumption will make the Prezhan unstoppable. Dare to make his own decisions, so he sent a telegram to Edel and asked His Royal Highness to make up his mind. Edel looked at the telegram and calculated the cost of equipping the entire army in his mind. It seems that there are only 2 divisions equipped first, and the others can only buy patents and build them slowly. It is estimated that the ammunition problem will become more and more serious. But there is still time to change. Karist sent a telegram to General Prezhan to buy 700 Madsen light machine guns and asked about the purchase price of the patent. The total price should not exceed £60,000. He can directly decide. Edel thought about it and said to his captain of guards. General Prezhan sent the telegram back a few days later, apparently being a good general, fascinated by a good weapon, and looking unfit to be a negotiator. Exactly £60,000. Obviously Denmark pressed him to the bottom line. Is this my mistake or too little experience? Edel thought in his heart. Now facing General Ploiesti, this agreement can only be signed. Edel, who was feeling a little depressed, saw Karist, the captain of his bodyguard, coming over. His Royal Highness Mr. Smith is here to visit. Let him in. Edel thought maybe our American friends brought back some good news. Your Highness the Crown Prince, I have good news for you. Who says Americans are rude? Apparently it just didn't work. I don't know what good news Mr. Smith has brought. Edel asked. The survey team from the United States has arrived, and now it is necessary to survey the location of oil production and the location of the oil refinery. Smith said his good news. Obviously against money standards oil has an extraordinary speed. That's good. I'll go take a look too. Edel, who obviously wanted to go out to relax, said to Smith, I welcome your presence at that time. His Royal Highness. I'll make arrangements first. Karest said to Edel after Smith left. Go, my chief guard. Obviously Edel still cherishes his own life, but he doesn't want it, because he has caused some kind of war. A lot of things can happen for the throne, and Edel has watched too many books and TVs about this in his previous life. In the evening, when I talked to King Carol about the idea of going to the oil field, the old king still agreed, except that the queen was a little worried, which was also persuaded by Edel. Chapter 5 Ploiesti. The next morning, Edel brought his bodyguards to the Standard Oil office in Romania, and saw Smith talking to a group of workers in canvas overalls. As soon as he saw Edel Smith, he hurried over. Good morning, Your Highness Edel. Welcome. Do you need to visit our office? Edel looked at the two-story brick and wood structure with the style of the previous life in front of him. Forget it. Smith's business is important. Okay, Your Highness. Smith turned his head to the group of workers and shouted, get ready to go, you slackers. Obviously, Smith's courtesy is to distinguish people. Soon the group came to the railway station and boarded the train to Ploiesti. Edel and the guards sat in the attached royal carriage. Obviously, this was arranged by the captain of the guard, Karest. The train started slowly, and Edel looked out the window. The sea of ripe wheat, the golden wheat waves blown by the breeze. Edel is very happy to see. This is my country, and I have the responsibility to bring the kingdom and the people strong and rich. The sword of the kingdom needs to obtain enough living space for his people. Edel expressed his ambitions in his heart. Edel and his party reached Ploiesti 2 hours later. As the 6th largest city in Romania, Ploiesti has a population of 110,000, which is another small county for Edel, who has memories of past lives. Edel and his party got out of the car and saw the mayor of Ploiesti, Caracciuli, with a group of municipal officials and nobles welcoming His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. Needless to say, this is the work of the captain of the bodyguard. His Royal Highness, welcome to Ploiesti for inspection. Seeing Edel getting off the train, Mayor Caracciuli came forward to greet him. Caracciuli is 35 years old and has a personable appearance. As the Prime Minister's nephew, he naturally has his own channels. For the Crown Prince, he also got news from the Prime Minister, and he is not a master who can fool. Therefore, this time the Crown Prince came to inspect, and it can be said that he was relieved, and he did not dare to relax in the slightest. Mayor of Caracciuli, go and do your own work, don't worry about me. The Crown Prince obviously didn't want to be disturbed, and who would go out to relax with a group of officials and nobles. Okay, His Royal Highness, if you have anything, please call a guard and let me know, that I will come right away. Obviously, the mayor is also a transparent person. Edel nodded, and the group left the train station in a mighty manner. Looking at the departing Crown Prince, Caracciuli turned to the police chief and said, Chief Brewer, I hope the Crown Prince sees the good side of Ploiesti. Do you see it too? Yes, we will definitely let the Crown Prince see a good side. Ploiesti, I promise. The stocky 40-something police chief assured, wiping the sweat from his forehead, that it seemed the mayor had more than good looks. Mayor Caracciuli is the nephew of Prime Minister Stuli. He has been smart and eager to learn since he was a child. Later, he went to study in Paris, France. When he came back, he worked as a secretary in Stuli. 5 years ago, he was transferred to Ploiesti. The mayor, who has shown very good abilities, is generally regarded as the best young man in Prime Minister Stuli's family. In the carriage, the captain of the guard, Karest, told Edel about the mayor's experience. It seems that this Caracciuli is a very capable person. Edel thought to himself. Soon Edel and his party came to the eastern suburbs of Ploiesti, watching a 6-square-kilometer open space, where Smith was arranging workers to survey the land and prepare the place for an oil refinery. Mill took your team to measure the location of the factory, and Willis took your team to the north to survey the oil production point, and others to survey the pipeline location. He heard Smith's voice as soon as he walked to the open space. His Royal Highness, won't you take a break? Smith said when he saw Edel and his party rushing over. I'm busy with you. I'm just taking a look. I'll be gone in a while. Edel waved at Smith. Then I'm over. These slackers, you have to kick their ass to get the job done. Smith returned to the open space and began to direct the group of workers from the United States. Calloused, let's go shopping nearby. There's nothing to see here, Edel said to the captain of the guard. Okay, Your Highness, I'll make arrangements. The captain of the guard, Karist, still spoke in a serious manner. Edel sat in the carriage and watched the busy farmers in the fields by the roadside while the bear children were playing happily. From time to time, he does various dangerous actions, attracting peasant women to scold and spank, causing himself to cry, and making the working adults laugh. This beautiful pastoral scenery reminded Edel of the days in the previous life. In the evening, Edel returned to Ploiesti. Your Highness, the mayor of Karachuri has organized a welcome dinner for you. I hope you will attend. The captain of the guard, Karist, said to the crown prince. Okay, I'll be there on time. Edel replied to his chief guard. In the evening, the carriage that Edel was riding in was just used as the entrance of the banquet, and the mayor of Karachuri was waiting at the door with officials and local nobles. As soon as Edda got off the carriage, the mayor of Karachuri stepped forward and said to Edda, "Welcome to His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. It is an honor for our Ploiesti people to have you here." After speaking, he led Edel into the hall. In the hall, Edda stepped up to the front desk and raised his glass to Ploiesti, and a group of officials and nobles made a toast. In Ploiesti, I saw that the rich people live in peace and quiet. This is inseparable from the results of the efforts of everyone present. On behalf of the king, I would like to express my gratitude to you. Everything is for the kingdom, and I wish the king good health. The officials and nobles below replied together, cheers. After drinking this glass of wine, Edda, led by the mayor of Karachuri, came to the main officials and nobles of Ploiesti. Mayor Karachuri introduced them to Edel in a low voice, and Edel spoke words of encouragement and praise to everyone. Mayor Karachuri, I will tell the king what I saw truthfully. You did a good job, Edel said to the mayor of Karachuri beside him. All this was accomplished under the wise leadership of the king, and with the efforts of his colleagues. I was just coordinating it, Mayor Karachuri said modestly. Don't be humble, Mayor of Karachuri. Being able to coordinate with them is the biggest credit, Edel said secretly. For capable people, Edel still wants to pull into his own team. This is what I should do. It is my honor to serve the Crown Prince and His Royal Highness. The mayor of Karachuri faced the temptation of the future king, which was an irresistible temptation. Karachuri, you know that an oil refinery and other facilities will be built here in the past 2 years. This is the biggest investment of the royal family, and I hope you can help to complete it smoothly, Edel said slowly. Edel, who is willing to join the team, also showed a sense of intimacy. You don't need to call the mayor. Please rest assured, Your Highness, I guarantee that it will be completed as scheduled. Karachuri replied affirmatively to Edel. Finish the refinery first here. I will transfer you to Bucharest. I need your talents, Edda also said with a wish, who would be too much for capable subordinates. Chapter 6 Trivia. The next day, news of Crown Prince Edda's approachable and suave nature spread from Ploiesti. It's a pretty popular character to the general public. For nobles and officials, Edel is still a piece of ice flows under the water. No one can be specific about the Crown Prince's style. Edda spent 3 days in Ploiesti, where his approachable and suave side was fully felt by the people here. There are also preliminary images of the city. 3 days later, Edda, who returned to Bucharest, saw General Prezhan, who came back and gave a good evaluation of the old general's trip to Denmark. Edda was a good commander. Callist sent someone to investigate whether there is any flight experiment in our country, Edel said to the captain of his bodyguard, looking at the newspaper in his hand. Okay, Your Highness. The captain of the guard replied simply. How could I forget this? Edel was also quite speechless to himself while looking at today's newspaper. It turned out that I saw a report in today's newspaper called Prospects for Future Flight. It said that after the successful flight of the Wright brothers 2 years ago, there are successful cases of flight in all countries in the world. Looking forward to the future, with the development of aircraft, manned flight travel becomes feasible. Edel regrets that he forgot about the appearance of the plane, but it is only now that it can develop rapidly, as long as the funds are invested. Now the first thing I need to develop is the engine. Fortunately, the engine is still very simple. Unlike the future, which requires a large amount of continuous investment from a large country, now as long as private investment is available, it doesn't matter that Edel feels a little late thinking of this in the evening. Edel and Carol King and his wife had dinner together. Edel, you have done well recently, and I'm very happy. Carol said to Edel in a very relieved tone. Father, I just do things better. Edel said modestly. Edel, I plan to let you participate in the management of the army. My father is old and has no energy. You have to gradually take over my work. The army is the basis of your rights. The next day King Carol asked General Prezhan to bring Edel to the war office. Crown Prince, our Romanian military now has 10 army divisions and 1 guard division with a total of 298,000 personnel. The main distribution is 6 divisions for Russia and 4 divisions for the border and 2 divisions, one of which is our only cavalry division. Hungary has 3 divisions. Bulgaria has 1 division. The guard division is stationed in Bucharest to defend the capital. The Crown Prince heard that each division had 27,000 people and felt that this was too bloated. You must know that the German army division has only 17,000 people, France has only 16,000 people, and the United Kingdom has 18,000 people. Russia is not fixed, but it is also between 16,000 and 21,000. Most of the 1895 type of Shalimon rifles used in the army now, as well as some 1888 type rifles, even 1871 type. The artillery is mainly small caliber, and there are almost no heavy artillery. If the machine gun hadn't been for Edel to go to Germany to sign the payment, then the poor battalion would not be able to do it. Seeing this, Edel, who was bent on fighting for the best interests, felt that his task was very arduous. Now the primary goal is to strengthen the army, and now is the time to need the help of the German advisory group. It goes without saying that Germany's performance in World War I, but now we can only wait for Ludendorff and the others to finish their investigation. The unknown leader was completely ignored by Edel. Edel, who knew the initial situation of the army, returned to the palace and saw his captain of the bodyguard walking over. His Royal Highness, I learned that there is a young man named Henry Konda in China who is doing this experiment. I want to see him. Edel said to his chief guard. Edel met the next day and happened to be at Henry Konda, who was sponsored by Stella in Bucharest. He attaches great importance to Edel's summoning of Henry Konda, and he is well aware of why the Crown Prince summoned his own Henry Konda. Except he can build flying machines, other Crown Princes will not be interested. If the Crown Prince can be persuaded to fund himself, he will no longer have to worry about funding. I have seen His Royal Highness, Henry Konda said after saluting Edel. I heard you can build flying machines? Edel asked. Yes, flying has always been the desire of human beings. Now we have initially been able to fly to the sky. In the not too distant future, people will travel by aircraft. In the future, there is no need to take a train or ship to go to London. Just an aircraft can take you there, so that you can go out in the morning and arrive in the afternoon. Of course this requires a little development, but I believe that with only some financial help, I can build such a vehicle. Watching in front of himself gushing about the great goal Henry Konda. It seems that the aviator has been fooling around a lot, and no one knows more about the future development of aircraft than Edel. I have decided to sponsor you £20,000 a year for research in the future. The goal is to fly longer, farther and higher. Edel interrupted Henry Konda's speech. If he did not interrupt the aviator, he might be able to say one morning, thanks to the generous Crown Prince, I will definitely create a work that will surprise you. Henry Konda said overjoyedly. He thought the Crown Prince would fund it, but he didn't expect so much. Can you create something that amazes me? The flying saucer is about the same. Edel, who has been through a lot of battles since he came, thought to himself. Unexpectedly, I was really surprised by this guy in front of me. Edel was walking in the garden in the afternoon when he saw a maid approaching him and telling him that the Queen was looking for him. Is there something wrong with mother? Edel came to Queen Elizabeth. Edel, you are growing up, and your mother arranged for you two maids to clean your room. Queen Elizabeth said to Edel. I saw two young and beautiful maids walking in outside the door. Edel looked at them and thought that they had come. The king had said before that he would arrange a maid for him, and as a man, Edel had no reason to refuse. I have seen the queen and her royal highness. The two maids said, after saluting Edel and Queen Elizabeth. In the future, you will be responsible for following the crown prince and managing his daily life. Queen Elizabeth said to the two maids in front of her. Edel, take them back. Edel returned to his palace and asked, what are your names? My name is Carioluna, your highness. The left side looks sweet, with long blonde hair and brown eyes, and a pair of slender eyes. Thighs, slim like a model girl, answered the crown prince. His royal highness, my name is Emina. He has blue eyes and long eyelashes on the right hand side. He is gentle and pleasant. He has brown hair and a bulging body. Especially, Edel's chest is at least 34. Both of them bowed their heads shyly after speaking. It seems that the queen taught them what to do. Chapter 7 Reorganization of the Army Part 1. The next day, Edel woke up feeling refreshed and said to the two maids who covered their heads on the bed, you were exhausted last night, you should rest more. Last night, Edel and the two maids fought hand to hand until late at night before subduing them. Fortunately, Edel relied on her youth to get up in good health, but she was very considerate to the first Edel of the two maids. After Edel left, the two maids showed their heads and smiled at each other, both blushing shyly. In the next few days, Edel had completely lived a life of sexual happiness. He tried all kinds of tricks and postures, and the two maids became more and more bright. But with Ludendorff reporting, Edel got busy. His Royal Highness, this is the report of our advisory group after the inspection. Ludendorff, the head of the military advisory group, handed over the report. Why is Ludendorff the head of the group? At that time, because Edel sent a telegram to Germany, to Ludendorff. Dolph is very satisfied. I hope he can help him reorganize the Romanian army. So Arpor and unknown Captain Gillister was transferred back, and Ludendorff took over and gave him a first-class rank casually. Now a colonel. He wrote this report with great care after his inspection. Edel was looking at the report thinking about the problem, more serious than he thought. The military command system was bloated, and the techniques and tactics of senior officers remained in the Franco-Prussian War. The military is underpaid. The situation of stealing and selling materials in the army is very serious, and the tactics of the lower level commanders are rigid. It seems that the whole army will be reorganized. And a thought. However, this requires the support of the king, which cannot be accomplished by itself. In the afternoon, Edda handed Ludendorff's report to Caroline. The old king looked at the report and asked Edda, what are you going to do? The problem of the army is too serious. It should be abolished when it should be abolished, and it must be cleaned up. Arseholes, increase army salaries. All officers are organized to study in batches. They can't keep up with the arrangement of the times to retire, and our army is too bloated. There are nearly 30,000 people in a division. We can learn from Germany. First, we will train the guard divisions, and then the whole country. A major reorganization of the army. Only in this way can we gain our own interests in the increasingly tense situation in Europe. Edda said ambitiously. Go for it. This kingdom needs you to inherit in the future. But you must remember, Edel, the army must be in your own hands. Caroline said to Edel with a serious face. Father, I will. The kingdom will never fall in my hands. Edel assured the old king. Carol. After Edel left, Caroline called the court administrator Adri to instruct him. Let everyone in the army obey Edel's orders. Okay, your majesty. It seemed that the era of Crown Prince Edda was coming, Adri thought to himself, and walked out, after saluting the old king. In the next few days, Edda, Pretian, and Ludendorff discussed the formation of the army, and finally made a formation, based on Romania's actual situation. First of all, there are 10 infantry squads, including a squad leader and a deputy squad leader, who are served by corporal and senior soldiers. All with more than 98 rifles. 4 infantry squads form a platoon plus a deputy platoon leader. The second lieutenant is the platoon leader, and the deputy platoon leader is a sergeant or sergeant. There are 42 people in total, all of which are riflemen. 4 infantry platoons form a company plus 10 cooking squads, 3 Madsen light machine guns form a fire squad of 11 people, a communications team 4 people, plus 2 commanders and deputy commanders and 2 orderlies. The commander and deputy company commander consists of lieutenant or captain served, a total of 197 people. 4 companies form a battalion, a fire platoon equipped with 3 Maxim heavy machine guns, plus a guard squad of 10, 2 chaplains, 6 cooking squads, and a 6-person communications squad in charge. The battalion staff was served by a captain, with a total of 847 people. The 3 battalions form a regiment, plus the 3,158 officers and deputy commanders of other affiliated troops in the regiment, have the rank of colonel or lieutenant colonel, and the chief of staff has the rank of major. The 2 regiments form a brigade, which is either a colonel or a major general. The 2 brigades form a division plus an artillery regiment. The artillery regiment consists of 4 battalions. 2 battalions of 18 caliber 75 caliber field artillery, a battalion of 18 75 caliber mountain artillery, and a battalion of 12 105 caliber light howitzers in addition to a logistics transportation regiment. Engineer regiment, 9 company system, military police, field hospital, cavalry reconnaissance battalion, communication office, etc. The total division is about 16,000 people. The Major General serves as the division commander, and the division has 68 artillery pieces in the case of the same number of Romanian and German divisions in this establishment. The frontline soldiers were nearly 1,000 fewer than Germany's, and they were all strengthened to logistics and sappers, which was strongly requested by the Crown Prince. According to Ludendorff's calculations, the Romanian division was 10% more expensive than the German division, which was still 105 guns less than the German one. Although looking at the enhanced version of the German division, Ludendorff's heart is complicated. Although he has his own efforts, it is not his own motherland after all. Ludendorff is also skeptical about whether Romania can be fully adapted. Edel doesn't know the complicated heart of Ludendorff. He now wants to show the reorganization plan to the old king. Only with the consent of the old king Carol can the plan become a reality, rather than put it on the shelf, although the old king agreed before. His reorganization of the army, because the cost of this reorganization is too high. Edel couldn't get the government to agree, only the old king had this prestige. Carol sat in his chair and looked at the report in front of him and pondered deeply. Chief Adri stood motionless like an invisible man. Edel stood opposite the old king, waiting for Carol to decide on the plan. The only sound in the room was the sound of the clock moving. After a long time, with the sigh of the old king, the room became popular again. Does Edel have to follow this plan? The old king asked reluctantly. Father, this is the best way to fight for the interests of the family and the country. Edel insisted. I will ask the prime minister to come over to discuss it, and he will agree. After Carol said this, he seemed to be drained of strength and felt a little dazed in front of him. The manager Adri next to him saw it and hurriedly prepared to come over to support the old king, but was stopped by the old king. Adri, you go out first. The manager nodded and walked out. The father and son were the only ones left in the room. Edel, you grew up and have your own ideas. I can understand. I saw your bet in this plan, a bet on the situation in Europe. Are you sure you want to bet? Carol is old, but still has a sharp mind, and he can see the point at once. Yes father. I know this is a gamble. You have to believe that your son will be on the winning side. Edel said firmly. Carol felt in his heart that the child had grown up, and he was not listening to his sudden sadness. Prime Minister Sturley was summoned into Peresh Palace the next day, and no one knew what the king and prime minister had talked about. Later, in the face of the huge military reorganization cost of up to £20 million, the prime minister quickly signed his name. Facing triple pressure from the king, the prime minister and the military in parliament, he quickly succumbed. The plan took 5 years to reorganize 2 divisions each year and 3 divisions in the final year. The plan changed the active duty 11 Romanian divisions, 1 guard division, to 16 German reinforcement divisions, 2 guard divisions. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8: Reorganization of the Army. Regarding the reorganization of the entire army that suddenly appeared in Romania, although the number of people has been reduced by 50,000, it is generally a second-tier army in Romania. Pulled to a world-class level. Later generations called this practice Sangan politics or militarism. Germany cheered after hearing the news. They all think that pulling Romania into their offensive and defensive alliance is only one step away. The Kaiser also said privately to the important ministers that if Romania does not have enough money to train the army, it can pay Romania an additional 200 million marks, which means that Romania must officially join the alliance. The General Staff also made plans for Romania to join the alliance for this purpose, saying that if Romania joins, the German Eastern Front can also transfer a few more divisions to strengthen the Western Front. He also specially sent awards to Ludendorff. If he hadn't just been promoted to the military rank, he would probably be called Your Excellency General. France's reorganization of Romania this time is believed to be the result of Germany's win over Germany, and Romania are widely believed to have a secret agreement. For Russia, which is still at war with Japan, the decisive battle in Fengshan is the top priority, and it is no longer a concern. It can be said that Romania will think about its own camp when facing the European road roller. Britain is now overwhelmed by the shipbuilding frenzy and is only expressing serious concern. This is good news for Austria-Hungary. Some people help themselves to share the pressure on the Eastern Front and can exert more influence on the Balkans. This is definitely not good news for Bulgaria. King Ferdinand asked several ministers about whether Bulgaria could also transform its own army. The Chancellor of the Exchequer directly shattered the king's illusion, saying that the government has no money. The military also said that there is currently a lot of pressure on the Ottoman border and that it cannot have a deadlock relationship with Romania. The Romanian military is quite welcome to the reorganization, but it does not know Edel's follow-up plan. Soon Edel came up with an officer training plan, requiring a large number of low-level officers to enter, and a 6-month rotation training course was held by the German advisory group and the senior officers with rich technical and tactical skills such as Precision, and they could only return to the army after the exam. His original army. The plan began with the Guard Division and the 3rd Romanian Army Division. What does the army think of this officer training program now? Edel asked General Prezhan. Recently, the Crown Prince has been sleeping and eating because of the reorganization plan, and even his two lovely maids have no time to care for them, which is hard enough. As someone who has never served in the military, Edel still pays attention to the dynamics of the military. Now the junior officers have a little complaint, but they are usually officers with poor technical and tactical skills. The War Department can suppress this small objection. General Prezhan replied that as a person whose interests will be damaged by any reform, a little complaint is inevitable. There are people who are messing around everywhere, and as an army, it is inevitable. For the children of nobles who come to mix their seniority, it would be good to gather them together and arrange them into a special army. Edel has not fully grasped the power and can only use this method to avoid conflicts between himself and the nobles. General Prezhan, do you think the anti-corruption campaign and the military can begin? Edel is obviously a vigorous person, but in the face of this powerful department of the army, they still need to take into account their feelings. The main issue in the military's anti-corruption campaign is salary. If you can raise their salary, I don't think it will be a big problem, General Prezhan said, after thinking about it. As for the problem that the Romanian army's salary is too low, it seems that we can only try to find the prime minister, not the old king every time. Edel thought to himself. Edel is actually well aware of the low salary of the army. The salary of the Romanian army is also low in the Balkans, not to mention the surrounding Austria-Hungary and Russia. The next day Edel came to the Prime Minister's office to meet Prime Minister Stulai. Good day, His Royal Highness. Do you know what is the matter with your coming to the government? The old Prime Minister asked politely. Prime Minister Stuart, I came here mainly because the army's salary is too low. You know that with the reorganization of the army, the requirements for officers are also increasing, and the current salary has long been unable to meet their daily needs. So I'm here to discuss with the Prime Minister how much the salaries of the army can be raised while meeting the reasonable living needs of the soldiers. Edel made his request to Prime Minister Schully straight to the point. His Royal Highness has discussed the low salary of the army, and the government has also discussed it. You know that the army reorganization bill just passed. The government will increase the financial pressure of £4 million every year, and the salary increase that can be given will not be too big. We discuss the result is an overall increase of 10%, which is the government's greatest sincerity. Prime Minister Stewart is obviously not a fuel-efficient lamp, and it is estimated that it is not easy to face the government's financial pressure. This is too little. I have calculated that it needs to be increased by 40% so that the soldiers can meet their own living needs. Crown Prince Edel said loudly, the salary increase should be happy for everyone. This is the magic weapon that he controls the army. Edel sees it very clearly. His Royal Highness is impossible. The army has been upgraded too much. Government officials will have opinions. What should they do if they also ask for a salary increase? So the finances are likely to go bankrupt. The Prime Minister needs to know that the army is the cornerstone of the country. In the current situation of confrontation in Europe, the opinions of the army should be fully considered. Edel said with reason. His Royal Highness Edel, but this also takes into account the operation of the government. The government can't just care about the army. The government is responsible to all the subjects of the kingdom. It can increase by 20% at most. This is the limit of the government. Prime Minister Turley obviously still has to consider the face of Crown Prince Edel. So take a small step back. It's still too little. Since the government is in difficulty, I can make concessions on behalf of the army. So 30% is the army's final bottom line, and I can't make any more concessions. If there is any less, the work of reorganizing the army will not go on. Edel also made concessions in the face of the Prime Minister's sincerity, and at the same time expressed his final bottom line to the Prime Minister after intense discussions. The Prime Minister finally gave in. Agreed to Crown Prince Edel's request for a 30% increase in the army's salary, so that the Romanian army's salary could reach 80% of Germany's, and Edel was also very satisfied. This also made Edel's prestige in the army soar, and also cleared obstacles for the follow-up reorganization plan. Chapter 9 Reorganization of the Army. After Edel got what he wanted from the Prime Minister, he saw Ploiesti, who was busy at the Ministry of War, and saw Ploiesti saying to a staff officer, send this batch of rifles to the Guards Division. They keep saying the replacement G98 is not enough, and now the addition of this one should meet the demand. Now Prezhan looks rosy and energetic. That is because he has just been promoted to Chief of the General Staff. For this reorganization plan and promotion, the position of the Crown Prince in the army, King Carol promoted Prezhan to the rank of Lieutenant General and presided over the work of the General Staff. Seeing Edel's arrival, General Prezhan came over. His Royal Highness, you can call me if you have anything. I don't know what you have to do this time. Let's go to your office to talk. Edel obviously didn't want too many people know in advance. When he arrived at Prezhan's office, Edel told Prezhan about the harvest of the Prime Minister's office this time. His Royal Highness has raised the salary of the army this time. We will play a very important role in rectifying corruption in the next step. At that time, everyone will be convinced by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. As Edel's spokesperson in the army, Prezhan can enhance the Crown Prince's prestige in the army. Very happy. This allows him to benefit 2. For the time being, only you know about the military. Come up with a plan and I will approve it. Edel also knows how to give some benefits to his loyal subordinates. I can put the plan on the Crown Prince's table tomorrow. Shan assured the Crown Prince. After Edel left, Prezhan began to make a reasonable calculation of how much salary increases should be received at each level of the army this time. The next morning, Edel really saw the plan on his desk. In this plan, ordinary soldiers increased by 25%, non-commissioned officers increased by 30%, and lieutenant level officers increased by 35%. The school level is 30%, and the general above is 25%. The main purpose of this plan is to improve the middle and lower ranks of the officers, which can reduce the chance of corruption in the army in the future. It seems that General Prezhan is also very attentive. Edel signed the plan and asked the guards to hand it over to General Prezhan. Soon the army knew, and the pay increase made everyone happy. I'm very grateful to the Crown Prince for their actions, to fight for their interests, which is a great bonus to the Crown Prince's prestige. Just be grateful now, and you'll feel the majesty. Edel thought. Your Highness, or leave it to your ministers to do it, so that the dissatisfaction in the army will not be linked to the Crown Prince. Chief of Staff General Prezhan said to his Crown Prince, my Chief of Staff, you don't have to worry, some thieves in the army can't threaten me. The army can't only feel kindness, they should also feel majesty. Edel said quite confidently. A few days later, a notice to inspect the armament of each division was sent from the General Staff. The inspection teams formed by Edel himself are ready to start systematic inspections of each division. According to their report, Crown Prince Edel will clean up these worms in the army and show the majesty of the future king. The inspection team of the 5th Division is checking the logistics inventory. There are a total of 1,643 guns reported damaged, but only 817 guns have been reported damaged here, and there is a gap of 712 sets of military uniforms. Where did you go? A young investigator asked the sweaty logistics officer beside him. The fat logistics officer looked around at the investigators who were checking, quietly took out an envelope, and said nervously, actually, the rest is written on it. The investigator took the envelope and opened it and saw that there was a thick pound of pounds inside. It seems to be 500 pounds. The young investigator said. It's actually 600 pounds, replied the chubby logistics officer. Jigger, come here. The young investigator looked at the terrified logistics officer. Take a note of Major Glast, who tried to bribe the inspection team with 600 pounds. You must remember Giga. It's gone. The investigator named Giga wrote with a mocking expression. You have to remember, this is not something I can do alone, with the support of big people. Major Glaster was doing his last struggle. You mean you have a big man behind your back? I'm very interested to know who he is. The investigator looked at the major with a very interested expression. Major Glast obviously realized that, if he said it, he would die. If you don't say that it is possible to save yourself, you will immediately keep your mouth shut. Looks like he's still a smart guy, but I'll let you speak, but you won't like it. The investigator leaned down and said to the terrified major with a smile. When setting up the investigation team, Edel realized that corruption in the military would involve a great network of relationships. At this time, he needed a certain ability to protect himself and the continuation of the investigation. Edel gave each investigation team leader a secret warrant, which could requisition the gendarmerie of each division when the investigation was interfered with and could no longer be carried out. Soon, various investigation teams sent news that there were quite a few problems. It was no longer a big deal that guns and ammunition were not taken into account. The 7th Division lost 2 artillery pieces, which made Edel quite speechless. What a lack of intelligence. Performance. The division chiefs and chiefs of staff were all involved. General Prezhan. It seems that the training of senior officers must be carried out. Edel said to his chief of staff, I didn't expect it to be so serious. Does His Highness need to investigate further now? He asked with a guilty conscience. General Prezhan was afraid that this incident would prevent the Crown Prince from coming to power, which would be a big blow to the Crown Prince's prestige. Edel was still a little hesitant. He was also afraid that he would be injured by the tiger instead of dying, just like Prince Jiang and the history of his previous life. But in a world war, if there is no army with outstanding military achievements, it is very difficult for Edel to accept. Thinking of these, Edel himself has made a decision. And this is also different from Prince Jiang. Let the investigation team continue to investigate. In the end, they can't fight against the kingdom. Edel said to Prezhan. Returning to the palace, Edel stopped a servant and asked, where is my father? The king is in the study. The servant hurriedly said to the Crown Prince. Edel went to the study and saw that Karolai was working on a document. Is Edel okay? The old king looked up and saw Edel entered the study. Yes father, I need your help. Edel replied, tell me, what help do you need from me? The old king straightened his waist and asked the Crown Prince in front of him. I need the kingdom's spies to help me keep an eye on the military's top generals. Edel told the king about his request. What's wrong? Edel told Karolai about the investigation report, saying that it was still the result of an in-depth investigation. The old king pondered for a while and called for Viscount Adri, the chief steward. "Call Milek for me." "As your majesty." The steward saluted King Carol and the crown prince and walked out. Chapter 10 Army Disputes. After a while, an ordinary looking middle-aged man walked in quietly and said after saluting the old king, "I have seen your majesty. Milek is my crown prince Eda." The man named Milek said to Eda, "I have seen his royal highness." In fact, Milek knew that Crown Prince Eda was beside him, but as a king's eyes and ears, there were obviously taboos for many things. "Milek called you this time because you need your spies to monitor the top of the army to see if they have any bad behavior." The old king said to the head of the spies, "Follow my king, you will know them. Every move." The old king waved his hand, and the rather ordinary Milek left silently, just like when he came. Edel hopes you do well this time, and don't let me down. Caroline said to the crown prince, "Father won't let you down." Eda also understood that his father supported him so much this time, and if he failed, Eda would probably not have much rights to become king in the future. This also greatly increased the pressure on Edel. Soon, with the in-depth investigation of the investigation team, more and more problems emerged in front of the crown prince. The characters behind were also restless and began to connect in series. Filorenscu handed the letter in his hand to the servant. "Give this letter to General Protek." "Good, Count." The servant took the letter and left go out. Filorenscu secretly rubbed his forehead. If it wasn't for the crown prince's persecution, who would want to offend the future king? The army is paid too little to support itself in a decent way. Originally, I was thinking of launching a few surrogate ghosts so that the crown prince could gain face and he would be happy to retire. Then we high-level military leaders are not though. We should use actions to tell that hairy boy that the army has its own rules, but the old king standing behind is quite thorny. Thinking of Caroline, Filorenscu also resented the old king, and you don't care about the crown prince making him mess up. And this kind of communication continued for the next few days. "Sir, we have found out that the servants of Count Filorenscu's house frequently go out." A spy said to Milek, who was sitting at the desk. "Where did they go?" Milek asked, looking at the spies in front of him. "General Plotk, Viscount Miller, General Lauren Clay are also walking around frequently." The spy replied earnestly, "It seems that the high-level officials of these troops are planning to hold a banquet." Milek said a joke, he thought, and the spies standing at the table did not dare to respond to the joke. "I have sent people to stare them to death. I want to know the content of their exchanges. It is estimated that there will be a party. I want to know the location. Can't there be a mistake to understand?" Milek stared at the spy under his command and said with a stern look. The spy in front of him said with a stern look, "Don't dare to look Milek's eyes and bow your head to salute. Follow your orders." Milek told the old king the news. "The army is like a garden that has not been cleaned for a long time and has grown weeds. What do you think Milek thinks about this?" The old king asked the leader of the spies in front of him. "Your Majesty, I will only obey your orders. You need to ask other people about this." Milek has a great understanding of his identity, as the king's external eyes don't have your own ideas. It is very dangerous. "You boring guy." The old king thought for a while and said, "Continue to watch their actions and report anything abnormal." "As your Majesty." Milek left silently. Caroline had a deep affection for the army, which had a lot to do with the fact that he was born in the Hohenzollern family, so he was very sensitive to the control of the army. Edel is tired of more and more problems with the army. In this life, he has never done such a complicated event before. In his previous life, he was also an ordinary person. He was bragging and chatting on the computer every day. "Cunning, why are all the protagonists on the internet so powerful, and the first big thing they do is so difficult?" His Royal Highness sees you so busy every day, and we can't help. Otherwise, let's take a rest. The two maids, Emina and Carolina, comforted Edel when they saw the frowning look of the crown prince. And saw that the two maids warmed up slightly, and he had not had time to find them, since he was busy with the reorganization of the army. "Well, let's go to rest." Edel looked at the two of them with a smile, and the two maids lowered their heads a little shyly when they understood the meaning of the crown prince. The next day, Edel woke up and savored the opening of the two girls last night. Carolina's long legs are still good, and Emina's breasts have grown bigger, and she is about to become a big cow. Maybe she is a farmer. Hope. Knowing that they are under a lot of pressure, the two women are really empathetic. After Edel came out, he saw the captain of the guard walking over. "Do you have any news from Kerest?" Edel asked. "Your Highness, this is the document the king gave you." Edel opened it and saw it. Count Feransku, a high-ranking army officer, is concatenating the news of other senior officers. It seems that Karolai intends to hand over this matter to Edel, which can see Edel's ability, and can also purge the army of forces that are not loyal to the king. It can also show others that power is still in the hands of the royal family, which can also make those restless people more honest. Your Majesty didn't say anything? Edel asked. "I just told you to see it, you will know." The captain of the guard Kerest replied. The chief guard sent a telegram to the inspection team and asked them to speed up. No matter what method they used, they would dig out the big man behind me. Edel said to the chief guard, after thinking for a while. "Yes, Your Highness, with the radio transmission in Bucharest, the actions of the inspection teams are also accelerating, and the scene of shouting is also increasing. Colonel Slob, the logistics officers under your command, say that you ordered them to do it. Do you have anything to say about this?" In the headquarters of the 7th Division, the inspection team was questioning the logistics chief officer. "They are slandering, and I didn't tell them to do it." Seeing Colonel Slob denying it, the inspection team took out the ledger from the logistics officer and said to Colonel Slob, "Is this also slandering?" Colonel Slob saw his signature. "They forged it. Anyone can get my signature." Seeing that Colonel Slob refused to admit his account, the inspection team leader said to his team members, "Take turns to interrogate him. If he doesn't open his mouth, he won't let him rest. See how hard his mouth is. The team leader should be okay. Convict him, while let him speak." A team member asked inexplicably, "I want the person behind him." The team leader described his request. Chapter 11 Army Chaos. With the accelerated pace of various inspection teams, the military high level hidden behind the scenes could not sit still. They speeded up the contact and finally decided to find a hidden place in Bucharest for specific discussions in the southeastern suburbs of Bucharest. There is a small villa next to a village called Malvero. According to the villagers, it was built by a businessman named Carrot for vacation. There lived a servant who cleaned the house and did not communicate with the village, which seemed very mysterious. However, this businessman has come here in the past 2 days, and many people came in and out. Today, it was even brighter, and I heard that it was a banquet. In the dark corner of the woods next to it, 2 men in black clothes were peeping with binoculars and came in to attend the banquet. That's Viscount Miller, General Lauren Clay, and General Bill Slow. It seems that they are all important figures in the army. In addition, there are 7 high-level army officers who have already entered. You go and report to the head, and I will monitor them. The spy with the telescope said to his colleague in a secret room in the villa. Count Feransku and Viscount Miller, General Lauren Clay, General Bill Slow, etc. 7 high-ranking military leaders are sitting together. In fact, Lorenscu not only contacted these 6 people, but only these few could come. The others feared the majesty of the old king and did not dare to participate, but they did not inform the king and were all watching the development of the situation. These cowards, don't they know the danger until the king puts the knife on their necks? General Lauren Clay saw that no one spoke, so he had to come first. As the commander of the 7th Division, he has the biggest problem. This time, he is trying to survive, and his invitation to Feralenscu is also the most positive. Lauren Clay, don't get excited. At least those people didn't lead the old king. This is already the biggest benefit to us. There is a lot of room for manipulation. Viscount Miller, who was sitting opposite him, analyzed depending on the situation. Viscount Miller is the chief officer in charge of the supply of the army, and this time the problem is also serious, seeing that it was almost done. Feransku also said, "Actually, I don't want to fight against the king. I was born and died for him, and I was wounded in the War of Independence. But now he has abandoned us old people for the sake of the crown prince. Guys, this is absolutely unacceptable. In fact, the king asked us old guys to retire. It's nothing. It's just that he shouldn't throw dirty water on us. How can we support ourselves with that salary? There are a few high-level military officials who are not corrupt. This time, he asked the crown prince to investigate corruption, just to target our group of people who worked hard for him. I just want to get justice for us. Looking at Ferencu, who spoke passionately about the injustice of the king. The others were silent, and when they saw everyone else, Lauren Clay and Miller looked at each other, and Lauren Clay stood up and said, Count Ferencu is right. We old fellows were born and died for the kingdom. We were kicked out of office by the king in a disgraceful way. We will never agree. This is an insult to us. Yes, we must show our strength and let the king know that the army has its own rules. Miller also stood up and responded. The others who were infected by the two also nodded in response. That's right, the king must respect us old guys. Seeing that the scene was starting to warm up, Ferencu squeezed his hands with a smile, and the scene became quiet. Actually, we don't want to oppose the king. As long as he can stop this farce, we will introduce a few pawns, so everyone is happy. The crown prince has achieved results, and we can live in peace. The others nodded in praise from the others, and a senior military officer sitting behind asked, then what shall we do? Actually, as long as a few officers who are detained by them are killed, and then there are rumors that the crown prince wants to purge the officers. That is, all the people who are not the crown prince should be purged this time, and then they are encouraged to be willing to the king and face the entire army power. The king will bow his head. Ferencu told them his plans. Another senior asked about the key to the plan. What about the guardsmen? You must know that the Branga division is the king's confidant. If the guardsman stops the officers and prevents them from petitioning, the scale will not be achieved, and the king may not give in. Take some time off, said Ferencu. The other top military leaders who got the exact plan went away satisfied. Ferencu and Viscount Miller and General Lauren Clay continued to discuss the follow-up plan. When the old king agreed to our request, we took the opportunity to ask for the reorganization of the army. I would be the minister of the army, General Lauren Clay would be the deputy minister, and Viscount Miller could be the chief of staff. At that time, the army would be in our hands. The king will also give us face. After getting the two he wanted, he left satisfied. Ferencu had been standing by the window looking out into the night, as if he was waiting for someone. Soon the butler came over with a man in dark clothes and a hood. The person you want is here, Count. Go down. The butler went out and closed the door. The mysterious man took off his cap to reveal a shrewd middle-aged man. Ivyklev has seen the count, and we have received your letter to Ambassador Lurlov. We in Russia are completely sympathetic to the count's request for help. Accepted. So I came to the mansion to make contact. After all, Ambassador Lurlov is too much to attract attention. Ferencu said with satisfaction. Then, Mr. Special Envoy, do you know if your army is ready? No, you're still at war. Ferencu asked. Please rest assured, Your Majesty. Your Majesty has specially selected a division from the guards, and the Cossacks also transferred a cavalry division. Together with the 4 border divisions, 6 divisions are ready. As long as your excellency can make the officers make trouble by paralyzing the Romanian army, we can quickly move to Bucharest and launch a thunderous strike on the king and his guard division. Austria-Hungary and Germany will also be unresponsive. France is our ally, and the United Kingdom will acquiesce to this. It is only natural for Count Ferencu to ascend to the throne, and the treaty signed by you, as His Majesty the King, will have legal effect, and you only need a small amount of sponsorship for our troops. The special envoy described the Russian side requirements and plans. It's so hard for the special envoy. Ferencu said with satisfaction. Count, please stay. Special envoy Ivyklev said to the earl who was standing at the door. Seeing that the envoy boarded the carriage and left, Count Ferencu also returned to the room. Britain, France, and Russia did not act at all for Romania's proximity to Germany. The dissatisfaction and concatenation of Ferencu and others gave them the opportunity to intervene. Chapter 12 Weed Cleanup. Ferencu and Ivyklev didn't know. They were seen by someone with a heart. Who is that? Please send Ferencu out of the house in person. It must be very important. I will follow up and see. The remaining spy quietly left the bushes, came to the secret place, and rode a horse and followed. Fortunately the moonlight today not very bright to see the road. After chasing for a while, I saw the carriage. The spy followed the carriage into the city and saw that the carriage stopped at the Russian embassy and the mysterious man entered the embassy. You said that in addition to the 7 senior military officials, you also saw Russians. Milik stared at the spy in front of him and said, and the spy recounted the process in detail. Milik pondered for a while and said, you take a few people to stare at the Russian embassy, and by the way, look at the nearby British and French embassies to see if they are moving. After the people left, Milik rubbed his brows and said to himself, more and more people are surfacing, and there's a bit of a shortage of manpower. Milik soon came to the palace to tell Caroline the news of the interference of external forces, and the old king said with a gloomy face, is the news confirmed? Yes, our spies saw it with their own eyes. The head of the spies replied, okay, let's go. Milik left. Go and call Edel over here. The old king said to Chief Adri. Crown Prince Edel is looking at the news sent by the inspection team. The inspection team has conducted an in-depth investigation and found that Viscount Miller, who is in charge of logistics, General Lauren Clay, the 7th Division Commander, Colonel Klaus, the Chief of Staff, and Bill, the 6th Division Commander, General Slough and others have evidence of corruption. It's a bunch of people, Edel said. No, your highness is the top quarter of the army. General Prezan said. Just as the crown prince was discussing with the chief of staff, Chief Adri came, and he brought with him the news that the king wanted to see him. The crown prince followed Adri to King Carol's study. Father, do you have anything to do with me? Edel asked. Now that the Russians have gone to see Firansku, they probably promised him something. The old king said the news he got. Father, I asked the inspection team to speed up the review and get the evidence of their corruption to arrest them. Edel said. Don't be so troublesome. The old king interrupted Edel. Let the inspection team produce enough evidence to convict them and send them to you immediately. I will let Milik and the others arrest these people. Caroline said. Is father doing this? Edel asked with a refreshed view, which was about to catch up with the authority of the East. Edel's evidence will be found. You have to believe in Milik's ability. You must cut off Russia's outstretched claws. It seemed that King Carol had deep vigilance against Tsarist Russia. As you wish. Edel replied, not a 3-year-old. Edel, who returned to the residence, called his captain of the bodyguard, and took a note to Karist. Use the password to send it to the inspection team, and remember to find a reliable person to send it. Captain Karist nodded seriously. When setting up the inspection team, Edel gave each team leader a set of code books. In case of any emergency, he could send it to himself without revealing it. He didn't expect it to be used. Soon the inspection team received the encrypted message, and the team leader called his confidant and whispered to him, I need to prepare a piece of evidence immediately. The confidant understood and left. The next day Edel received enough evidence that Edel took it to King Carol. Call Milik over here, the old king said to Chief Adrien. Soon Milik saw Caroline. Milik, take this order and go to Brangat to coordinate with the people on your arrest list. Understood, your majesty. Milik quickly withdrew. Go down. Only Carol and his son were left in the room. Does Edel think his father's actions are unreasonable? Edel was silent. Looking at his son Caroline, he still didn't understand Edel's thoughts. I asked you to reorganize the army before to increase the prestige of the army. That is not too difficult, and you can do it slowly. Now that the Russians reach out, they must cut the mess with a knife. Can't give them a chance. Romania can't mess up. King Carol explained his motives. Father, I understand your position in doing this, mainly because I was too impatient and didn't care about the overall situation. Edel confessed to his father that he was wrong. Milik took the order of King Carol and came to the headquarters of the Guard Division to meet General Blungat. Am I enough to give you a group of people? Blungat, who had seen the warrant, asked Milik. Enough, Milik said. Soon Milik brought out a group of people from the Guard Division. You go to Lauren Clay's house to arrest him. You go to Miller's house. You go to Bill Slow's house. Milik assigned his subordinates to capture the high-ranking army officers who had secretly met, and Milik himself led the team to capture the mastermind of this time, Count Firansku. The house of Count Firansku was chaotic today, and a large group of officers and soldiers of the Imperial Guard rushed in to drive everyone together. Milik was happy when he saw everything in front of him. Good morning, Count Firansku. You know why I came here today? Milik greeted the count with a smile. Count Firansku snorted coldly, turned his head, and said a word without looking at Milik. "You're just Karel's lackey, what's there to be proud of?" Milik still looked at the count with a smile, and said to the subordinates beside him, "Invite the count to our best VIP room. You must be warm." "Okay, I will definitely arrange the count in our best room. I believe that the count is very satisfied." Increased volume. Count Firansku and his confidants were taken away, General Lauren Clay was taken away, Viscount Miller was taken away, and a total of 7 military high-ranking officers were taken to prison by Milik. The news spread quickly, and the nobles and bigwigs were all waiting for the outcome of the matter. Speaking to the ambassador at the Russian embassy, Iviklev said, "It seems that the old lion is very vigilant, and I will leave immediately." The ambassador nodded in response. "For safety's sake, let the martial arts hall take you in a diplomatic vehicle." Iviklev nodded in agreement, still very fancy about his own safety. Soon the envoy left under the protection of the military attaché, and the news was sent to Milik by spies. "You're smart." Milik, who got the news, said in the prison, "My lord, the butler of the Lorenscu family has recruited." A sweaty spy came over and said, "These conspirators should be damned." Milik, who was looking at the butler's confession, snorted coldly, "I want to take the interrogation to all their confessions." As the breach opened, the top military officials admitted the whole thing. Only Count Ferencicu remained silent. Milik looked at the scarred Lorenscu in front of him. "Still don't speak. There's nothing to say." Ferlonscu knew that he was going to die, but he didn't want to hurt his family. "Mr. Count, if you speak up, I will apply for your family to leave Romania. Otherwise, if the servant knocks over the candle and sets off a fire, it will be a tragedy that no one will escape from the Count's house." "Do you think so, Count Firanscu?" Milik said with a regretful look. In the end, Count Firanscu gave in and said everything. Karolai looked at Milik's report and asked the Crown Prince, "How do you think things should be changed?" Edel thought for a while and replied, "The mastermind was hanged, and the participants were reduced to soldiers and quit the army, taking back their titles and military honors." Karol nodded with satisfaction and said to Director Adri, "Do as the Crown Prince ordered." Soon the Romanian government was charged with embezzling military supplies, embezzling military funds, and inciting army rebellion. Count Ferencicu was sentenced to hang, General Lauren Clay hanged, Viscount Millisol was hanged, his title and rank were recovered, all property was confiscated, and the family was ordered to leave immediately. Other participants were downgraded to soldiers with immediate retirement, embezzled money and military honors confiscated. Since then, the Crown Prince's prestige in the army has soared, and no one dared to disobey Edel's orders. Chapter 13 Questions. After the Filorenscu case gradually subsided, the reorganization of the army was also proceeding in an orderly manner. The work on Prezhan is progressing rapidly, and the first batch of training officers has been underway for 2 months today. Eda came to inspect the Bucharest Military Academy. "How are the cadets from Principal Prosi?" the Crown Prince asked the principal of the Bucharest Junior Military Academy. Principal Prosi was the deputy commander of the Romanian Army's 3rd Division. He has good military literacy, excellent work style, and a serious and responsible attitude towards work. The most important thing is that he is a person in the line of the Crown Prince. He has a firm position in the previous corruption case, so Eda transferred him to train as a junior officer. The chief officer, optimistic about this weapon that can give the Crown Prince control of the army. How many officers are expected to graduate? Edel wanted to know the quality of the lower level officers. The current batch of officers is expected to be about 350. It is estimated that about 50 will be able to graduate after rereading, and the remaining 100 are a bit difficult. Principal Prosi replied. It's according to German standards, the Crown Prince asked. "Yes, Your Highness. That's a bit low for the 70% pass rate, and it's only 80%, even if you reread it." Edel thought with a headache. For those who can't complete the course, they can arrange to reread it once, or they can retire for ordinary people. For the children above the Viscount, they can be arranged to be my bodyguards. Edel thought for a while, and said. Does this group of officers have any particularly good people? Edel wanted to see if there were any talents worthy of his attention. It's not bad to have a young cavalry officer named Chanprat. He was the cavalry company commander of the 4th Division before, and he has an extraordinary insight into the battlefield situation. He won the first place in the previous confrontation, which is not bad. Seedling, the principal, Prosy, said that he also knew what the Crown Prince meant. If you still perform so well in the future, you can recommend a guard division. I think General Blungett will like it. Edel said his suggestion to Principal Prosy. Is there anything else Karist has to do today? Edel asked himself, the captain of the bodyguard, after inspecting the military academy. Your Highness, it's time for you to visit the Romanian Kingdom Armory, said the captain of the guard. This arsenal was built by Edel with German money, but it is still building factories and training workers, and even the machines have not been shipped from Germany. Edel's visit just shows how seriously the kingdom takes it. In the evening, Edda and the king and his wife had dinner together. How was Edda's inspection? The old king asked, after he finished eating. Everything is going on in an orderly manner. The crown prince replied succinctly. You should also watch this industrial construction, and don't let your subordinates mess around. The old king warned, I will keep an eye on it. The next day, Edel looked at the report in his hand and pondered. It was a report from Giurgiu County. It was written that the local noble Viscount Siracosti had arrested several peasants who could not pay the rent. 3 of them died in the castle custody, and the others were rescued. Later, this Viscount Siracosti was stabbed to death when he went to patrol his own land. The police quickly caught the assassin, but during interrogation they discovered that an organization was secretly preaching the plight of the peasants, as if preparing for a riot. Giurgiu County did not dare to neglect this, and soon reported the news. Carolina left this matter to Edel, which was considered a political exercise. Edda also had a headache when he read the report. Edda knew that the farmers were poor before, but he couldn't do anything about it. Romania's finances are not rich, and there are no subsidies for farmers. The burden on the countryside is very heavy, coupled with the oppression of the nobles. People often freeze to death and starve to death. Now Edel feels very thorny. The reorganization of the army is the guarantee of whether it can obtain territory in World War I. The nobility is the foundation of the current politics, and dare not tamper with it, and other expenses cannot be tampered with. In a word, there is no money to improve the living conditions of farmers. There was also a bill to improve farmers more than 10 years ago, but it has hardly been implemented. This made Edel a little overwhelmed. Thinking about the experience of the previous life, the Eastern powers were able to survive because of the organized bonus and the nation's ability to work hard and endure hardships. In India, it was the national talent plus the religious bonus. Uncle Henry seems to be hanging happily. No, it's the reason of the species. Forget it. Send someone to investigate carefully before making a decision. Edel called his head guard. Arrange someone to go to Giurgiu County to investigate this organization. If you need help, you can ask Milik's men. The head guard nodded and went out to make arrangements. Now we can only wait for the result. Edel thought to himself. The captain of the guard Karist received a task from Crown Prince Edel and called a guard to tell him, let Squirrel come to see me. After a while, a smiling young man came to the captain of the guard. Lord, look for me. The young man named Squirrel asked the captain of the guard Karist. His Royal Highness gave us a task. I think you are the most suitable. Please instruct your lord. The young man, who was still smiling, said. Karist explained the task to him in detail. Then I'll prepare to leave tomorrow. The captain of the guard nodded in agreement. Giurgiu County is located to the southwest of the capital Bucharest. The county seat is on the Danube River, and Bulgaria is on the opposite side of the river. Shorala came to the county seat the next day and learned more about the development at the police station in Giurgiu County. Director Millers, how are your investigations going now? Squirrel asked the police chief of Giurgiu County. I initially learned that this is an organization that helps farmers to help each other, but resists the king's taxation. These people are quite vigilant, and it is difficult for outsiders to gain their trust. We police officers know all of them, so they only know so much. The police chief said what he had learned, and mentioned the difficulty. By the way, Shorala, who returned to his residence, sorted out his thoughts. It seemed that it was not easy to penetrate into them. How should he understand this organization? I don't know if other counties have this organization. Shorala thought of this and wrote a letter to the captain of the guard. Ask him to look into other counties to see if this is the case. Sherrill has been disguised in the countryside to investigate the situation these days, knowing that this organization is called the Farmers Brotherhood and usually helps some farmers in difficulty. Although there are not many things to help, most of them are small things, but they have developed rapidly in almost every village in the countryside. Soon, the captain of the guard of Kerest sent a message to Squirrel that this organization existed in several counties around Georgia. Chapter 14 Problem Transfer. While Squirrel was investigating the problem in Georgia, the head of the guard also reported the discovery to the crown prince. Edel was wary of the news that there was too much variability in an organization rooted in poor farmers. In addition, there are many problems in the Romanian countryside. With a little guidance, the bomb can be detonated. We will send people to investigate, and we must dig out this peasant brotherhood. We can't let it grow anymore, Edel said to his chief guard. Yes, your highness. The captain of the guard Kerest replied with a serious look. Back in his office, Kerest arranged for people to investigate quickly. He could feel that the crown prince was very concerned about this matter. Although he did not understand why the crown prince attached great importance to this small organization called the Brotherhood of Peasants, he only needed to execute the order. As time went by, the investigation became more and more in depth, and gradually the organization of the Peasant Brotherhood emerged. This is an organization initiated and established by a man from Fredaro, who was originally a member of the Romanian Peasant Party. He quit the Peasant Party because of his radical ideas and disliked the activities of the Peasant Party, and later established this Peasant Brotherhood. Now this organization has just started to develop, and it has such a large capacity. It seems that the problems in rural areas are also very serious. Edel thought of this and called the captain of the bodyguard. Tell the investigators below to pay more attention to the contradictions in the countryside and give me the report of the rural investigation. The next day, Edel saw these various rural conflicts, mainly because the farmers had little land and the land was in the hands of the nobles. Among them, the Edel family was the largest landowner in Romania, which made the farmers only rent land, and the nobles would be larger. Part of the grain is sold abroad to earn money, while domestic demand is not met. Coupled with the rampant Jewish loan sharks in the countryside, there are too many things to bring down the family with a little emergency money, so now the farmers are quite miserable. It is also very welcome to organizations that can help them. Edel looked at this organization called the Peasant Brotherhood with a sense of familiarity. It was very similar to a certain big country, but it was a weak version. This makes Edel very uneasy. Thinking of this, Edel can't sit still, and the effect of simple suppression is not obvious. It seems to guide farmers to vent their grievances. The nobility is now the foundation of the kingdom, and the royal family is the biggest landlord, so the root problem of land cannot be resolved, so we can only think of other ways to delay it until the outbreak of one station has the economic capacity. Edel picked up the report and read it again, and suddenly a set of words caught his attention, and Edel thought of a common solution in Europe now. This is the best option for Romania at the moment, because these people don't contribute much to Romania anyway. Thinking of these, Edel felt that he could discuss it with Caroli. Edel saw Caroli tell this to the old king, and Caroli asked Edel what he thought. What are you going to do? Edel explained his decision and the reason. This is also the solution. Carol thought for a while and waved go ahead. Edel called the captain of his bodyguard to instruct him. Arrange people to keep an eye on the backbone of the Peasant Brotherhood and arrest them when I order them. Okay, your highness. I'll go on now. Captain Kerest left the room. After receiving the instructions, next military forces are needed to control this explosive force, which requires the arrangement of Ploiesti. His Royal Highness Edel, do you have any orders? Seeing Edel's arrival, Ploiesti stepped forward and asked, go to your office and talk. The Crown Prince ordered, His Royal Highness please. Prezhan understood that the Crown Prince had important things to look for himself. When he arrived at Prezhan's office, Edel said to Prezhan, arrange the army to pay attention to the movements of the peasants and protect the people of the kingdom. Those Jews who lend money with money cannot be protected. Who told them to suck blood on the people of the king? This is God's punishment. Okay, your highness, I'll give the army an order. Prezan said to the crown prince. In the village of Ploiesti, there are several peasants with tattered clothes, shivering and whispering from the cold. Have you heard that the vampire-like Jews in the village on the mountainside forced 2 families to death again? This bunch of damn vampires. The Mickle family in the village was also killed like this, and his poor sister was sold as a prostitute. It's really pitiful. A farmer said indignantly. We are all so poor, and these vampires won't let us go. Another farmer agreed. Why doesn't the king punish these bastards? I heard that these loan sharks have connections with the sheriff. This was another well-informed farmer. I heard that someone is going to punish them. A passerby with a raw face also said. A few peasants suddenly became interested and gathered around to ask, really? I'm not sure, but I heard that on November 15th, they plan to rob those loan sharks. The passerby left after saying that. Several peasants gathered around to discuss this amazing news. In that case, let's go and see if we can pick up some good things. This is the bold peasant's suggestion. What if you are caught by the sheriff? Asked timidly, and the farmers all expressed their opinions. The final result of the negotiation is stand far away and rush up to see if there is a chance. Soon the news spread in the village. On November 15th, everyone in the village planned to go to see the excitement together, except for the elderly and children. Almost the whole village was dispatched. When we arrived at the edge of the county town, we saw a huge crowd of peasants all surrounding the Jewish homes of loan sharks. These Jewish loan sharks were in a hurry. The phone can't get through, and people can't get out. The county should be able to see this place, and the police and the garrison have no shadow. Usually such a good relationship is unreliable. The head of the family was anxious. Did not send. Suddenly a terrible thought popped into my head. The word antisemitism, which made Jews desperate, took root in my heart. Rush in and destroy these guys who are sucking blood on us. Someone in the crowd was agitating, and the crowd immediately became excited when they saw that there were no police and military around. At this time, several people shouted, snatch them up. The residents of the loan shark, the surrounding crowd also rushed in irrationally. After the crazy crowd loses their minds, all sins may happen, and after robbing the houses, the surrounding Jews are also affected. The police and garrison were all around watching this happen. Almost 2 hours later, the police chief and the army chief, who were smoking, threw away the cigarette butts, stomped on it with one foot, and said fiercely, let these people wake up. Then the crowd saw that the garrison and the police gradually regained their senses. The police chief stood in front of the terrified crowd and roared, let me disperse them all. The chicken feathers, and several victims' family members, and then the police maintained order and caught a few people who were still looting. The next day was the same, only the trauma of the victim could not subside for a long time. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15, Postponing Questions. The anti-Semitic incidents in Ploiesti were not isolated. They occurred simultaneously throughout Romania. Most of these Jews are actually innocent people. When the conflict in Romania was about to break out, Edel could only choose these innocent people to suffer such hardships. Who makes them count as their own nation? Edel did not know that this early transfer of contradictions allowed Romania to avoid the largest peasant riot in Southeast Europe and the bloodiest repression. This is the benefit of past life experience. His Royal Highness's anti-Semitic campaign across the country caused a total of 876 deaths, 4,506 injuries, and 591 houses were destroyed. Now nearly 30,000 Jews have fled our country. Is it time to stop them? Karas, the head of the guard, reported the results of this incident to Crown Prince Edel, and did not forget to give a suggestion. Forget it. There's no need to stop them. The main goal now is to arrest the people who planned this anti-Jewish riot. The backbone of the peasant brotherhood. They planned this riot. It's for this group of innocent victims. An explanation. Edel said complicatedly about the follow-up plan. I understand, Your Highness. The captain of the bodyguard understood what Edel meant, and from the importance and taboo of the crown prince to the peasant brotherhood, he could see his malice towards this organization. This is but that decides the head. Edel thought to himself. He knew that Frederick was a person who really cared about the farmers, and that this group of people were all good people. But this group of people is too naive. They don't know how much power they have, a power that can threaten the foundation of a ruler. Edel saw the danger, and could only clear it in advance. Because he is now one of the biggest rulers, this arrest is also a denial of the social outlook and life values accepted in previous lives. It was also a baptism for Edel, but he didn't notice it himself. Soon, with the transmission of radio waves, military police and secret agents were dispatched from various places in Giorgio County. Fredero just went to mediate disputes for the farmers in the meeting. In any organization there are internal contradictions. Because the peasant brotherhood has not been established for a long time and has a low level of education, many things require Fredero to come forward. Fredero had just reached the door when a large group of police suddenly surrounded him. What's the matter, gentlemen? Frederick asked. We have an incident that requires the cooperation of your excellency Frederick to investigate. The police chief of Giorgio County came over and said. Seeing the cops staring around, Fredero said, don't alarm my family. As the backbone of the post fraternity was also arrested one after another, what awaited them would be endless interrogations, until they confessed their guilt. In the spy prison in Bucharest, Fredero was awake by a basin of cold water, and looked at him with bruises. In front of him was the famous Milik of the whole kingdom. Tell me, did you instruct your subordinates to incite peasant riots to loot Jewish homes and harm innocent people? The assistant next to Milik said righteously. I didn't order it. No one can wrong me. Fredero said stubbornly, his eyes fixed on Milik. Your subordinates have admitted that they were instigated by your orders. How dare you say it's not you? Milik's assistant was trying to convince the tough guy. Ha 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 ha. Fredero laughed loudly. Milik's assistant was obviously irritated by him and was going to step forward to teach the man who mocked him, but Milik stopped him. Give him a bath and change into clean and decent clothes, Milik ordered. The assistant opened his eyes and seemed a little disbelieving his ears, and Milik looked back at him. The assistant woke up immediately and hurriedly went out to prepare. Soon Fredero took a shower and stood in front of Milik in clean and decent clothes. Fredero, who knew what he was going to face, said to Milik, can you give me a glass of red wine? Milik motioned for himself to pour a glass of red wine. Fredero raised his glass and drank it and said to Milik, thanks, you're welcome. Milik walked out of the cell after saying that, only to hear Fredero sing the tune of his hometown. The singing was back in the cell. Milik walked out slowly listening to the song, and the singing stopped abruptly. The assistant walked over to Milik and handed him a piece of paper saying, this is Frederick's letter of repentance, written by our best imitator. Milo nodded in satisfaction. Later, in the trial of the peasant brotherhood instigating the riot to harm the Jews, the court sentenced several people to hang, and the rest were exiled and imprisoned. As for the mastermind, Fredero, because he committed suicide in prison, no sentence was pronounced. Edel looked at the interrogation report that Milik handed in and felt very uncomfortable. I feel a little guilty about framing others for the first time, and I always want to do something to remedy it. One day Edel looked at a report saying that people died of freezing due to the severe cold. Of course, not 1 or 2 people could be reported. This is a good opportunity for Romanians to feel the king's kindness. Edel thought. Edel, I think you've been in a trance recently. Don't think too much. This is politics. Seeing that Carolai hadn't made his proposal, Edel was told by the old king, who was skilled in human affairs, that he had recently condition is not good. King Carol is also well aware of why his son is in poor condition. Father, I can't let go, and I always feel a little sorry in my heart. Edel confessed his inner emotions to the old king. Edel is normal. No one is born with everything. It takes a process. After all, you are only 16 years old, so you will experience the sinister politics. Carolai comforted the prince. Do you have anything to do with me? The old king knew his son so well that it was impossible to find him. I plan to take some money to help the homeless so that they can feel the king's kindness. Edel told the old king about his purpose. This thing can be done in your own name, and the people can feel the kindness of the crown prince, so I don't need it. King Carol knew that this was what the crown prince did to alleviate the negative emotions in his heart, so he would do it for the sake of it is also good to increase the prestige of your own son. A few days later, the news came out that the crown prince saw that the homeless people were helpless, and for these poor people in each county, they were preparing rooms to provide them with lodging and hot water. This made Edel praised by many people, who said that the crown prince was kind. P.S. I think this chapter is essential. The protagonist needs to have a change in his heart. It takes time and energy to change from an ordinary person to a ruler. I hope everyone will not take offense. Chapter 16 Flight 1905 passed quickly. Edel's efforts are slowly changing the historical trajectory of Romania, and industrial equipment from Germany is being continuously sent to Romania, growing this small Balkan country. Everything makes Edel emotional. Today is the big day when the army reorganized the first batch of troops. Carol, I personally reviewed the reorganized troops accompanied by Edel and Prezhan and others. Your Majesty, please look at the newly reorganized 2nd Division of the Guards, which was reorganized by the Guards Division and the 3rd Division. Most of the officers at the lower level have been trained for a period of time, and they are the elites of our army. Prezhan pointed to the neat team in front, said, I'm very happy that you have done well, and I hope you will continue to work hard. Carol, I said to Ploiesti next to him, we will definitely reorganize the rest of the army, as powerful as your Majesty. Ploiesti replied to the old king. After all, the old king had limited energy. After a while of inspection, he was exhausted and returned to the palace, leaving Edel to continue his inspection. Now tell me about your difficulties. Edel asked to Prezhan. His Royal Highness is mainly short of more than 98 rifles, and there is still a shortfall of 20,000. The remaining soldiers are still using Manchely 1895 rifles, and the artillery is also short of 1,105 light howitzers. The field hospital is also short of medical equipment, and logistics troops are still short of mules. There are still 1,200 horses missing, and communication equipment is not enough. Prezhan complained to the crown prince. He had never experienced such a large-scale reorganization before, and it is normal to have some problems. Edel was taken aback and asked, let the existing arsenal build the rifle. Others can only be solved gradually after completion. Use the current equipment for a while. Medical equipment and communication equipment will be purchased from Germany, said distressedly. This is the result of Edel's own ill consideration. Before, Edel only purchased 30,000 rifles, and he did not purchase enough artillery. Edel had a good idea and planned to build it slowly, but now it can only be used first. Okay, Your Highness. Ploiesti and other high-level military officials did not expect the crown prince to solve the problem. The main purpose is to complain about the suffering, so that the crown prince can understand the actual difficulties of the army. Seeing the appearance of the crown prince worrying about military supplies, Prezhan decided to say some good news, otherwise he would appear a little incompetent. Now the combat effectiveness of a reorganized division of the army is 20% higher than that of one that has not been reorganized. Edel came as soon as he heard the interest. Have you done exercises before? The crown prince asked the chief of staff. Before, I only did it at the battalion level, but I didn't have time to do it later. Prezhan answered the crown prince's question. You can reach the division level this year, and let the whole army see the results. Edel said with great interest, and the chief of general staff of Prezhan calculated and said, it is estimated that it will not be ready until May. I will let the king come to visit the exercise at that time. Edel said to the chief of staff of his decision. The final result of the deliberations is still scheduled for May, to conduct division level military exercises. After Edel toured the army, he came to the Prime Minister's office to meet Prime Minister Stuart. Didn't Your Highness go to inspect the army? Why do you have time to come to the government? Prime Minister Stuart asked straight to the point, and Edel responded. The main reason is that the army still has a little medical and communication equipment and needs some funds from the government. How much money does this need? Prime Minister Stuart asked, fearing that the crown prince would speak loudly. Not much, just 5 million marks. Edel knew what the prime minister was thinking. It's easy for me to ask the Ministry of Finance to give it to the military. Prime Minister Stuart heaved a sigh of relief when he heard the numbers, just as he was afraid that the Crown Prince would back out. Edel said goodbye to the Prime Minister and returned to the palace with satisfaction. After a while, Henry Konder came excitedly, told Prince Edel that his plane was ready, and invited the Crown Prince to visit his test flight. Edel became interested and wanted to see the masterpieces of Romanian flying pioneers, so he agreed. The next day, Edel went to the suburbs in casual clothes. There was a large group of people around a flat grass. In the middle, he saw Henry Konder's precious flying machine. In addition to the 2 layers of canvas covering the wings, the whole body is a skeleton structure, and the seat is still sewn from 2 pieces of leather. Edel's concept of the aircraft has been refreshed. Henry Konder said something to his assistant with a smile on his face. Edel didn't step forward either, just stood on the side to see if the flight plan would be successful. Go tell him to start when you're ready. Edel instructed a guard next to him, who nodded and walked to Henry Konder to tell him what the Crown Prince meant. Henry Konder looked around and saw Edel. The Crown Prince signaled to him not to come over. Henry Konder nodded and prepared for the flight. In order to ensure the success of the flight, Henry Konder and his assistants had already carefully inspected the very original aircraft. Seeing Henry Konder sitting on the aircraft, the crowd dispersed. As the assistant starts the engine, the propeller starts to turn. When the propeller turned to a certain speed, the assistant removed the stone in front of the vehicle's wheels. The aircraft moved faster and faster, and after taxiing for 200 meters, the aircraft left the ground. At this moment, the people around were cheering. Henry Konder waved back and forth in the sky to the people on the ground, and also vented his excitement, thinking that he was looking for sponsors for funds, working day and night for the manufacture of aircraft, and flying into the sky. For a moment, it was all worth it. Henry Konder landed. After flying more than 10 kilometers in the sky, the crowd rushed up to greet the hero of the flight. The reporter also stepped forward to take pictures of Henry Konder and asked to interview the hero. Seeing the completion of the flight, Edel stepped forward to congratulate the pilot. Henry Konder is a successful flight. I hope you will continue to make better aircraft. Hearing the Crown Prince's encouragement, Henry Konder replied with a smile. The success of this flight is inseparable from the great support of the Crown Prince, otherwise I can't even build an aircraft. The next day, the newspaper reported the flight in the headlines, and the headline was that the Romanians also flew into the sky, which made Henry Konder has also become a household name. Edel looked at the newspaper and thought that the Romanian Air Force had fallen. Although it is still budding, I have enough time to wait for it to grow and bloom, but it still needs to be watered and fertilized. Thinking of this, Edel called the captain of the guard Karas to speak. The subsidy for Henry Konder can be increased to £30,000. The captain of the guard nodded and went out. Chapter 17 Exercise Part 1. The time will soon come to May, and the exercise unit has also been determined, and the 3 divisions after the reorganization will compete with the 5 divisions before the reorganization. The exercise is divided into upper and lower parts. The first part is also the most important offensive and defensive exercise, and the second part is a troop maneuver. May 8th, the date set by the General Staff. Karolai and Edel came to the exercise headquarters. The Chief of the General Staff, Prezhan, and the Minister of the Army brought the senior military officials in the German advisory group to greet the king and his party at the door. I have seen your majesty, everyone said. Karolai also waved to everyone who greeted him, and then a large group of people walked into the headquarters as the commander-in-chief of this exercise. Prezhan explained the content of the exercise to King Karol. Your Majesty, in order to test the real situation of the reorganized army, we have prepared this exercise. I hope the king and you can have a clear understanding of the reorganized army. Tell me about the specific situation, Karolai said to the chief of staff. Prezhan said with a nod to the king. Today's exercise is an offensive and defensive battle. The attacker is the 5th Division of the army, and the commander is the division commander, General Bram. Prezhan pointed to a general in his 50s behind the king. Karolai turned back to General Bram. General Bram hopes to show us a wonderful offensive battle. General Bram said after nodding. Your Majesty will see the wonderful performance of our 5 divisions. King Karol turned back and continued to listen to Prezhan's explanation. The defender is the reorganized 3rd Division, and the commander is the division commander, General Middelor. Preshan said, pointing to another general behind the king. After King Carol also encouraged General Middelor, he continued to listen to the explanation of Press and point the goal of this attack and defense is to control this hill. Preshan explained to King Carol, pointing to the hill on the map. Seeing that the explanation is almost done, Edel said to the two offensive and defensive commanders, the two generals can go down and prepare. General Middeler and General Bram nodded and walked out of the headquarters after the explanation. Preshan asked Carol, "Can your majesty start?" The old king nodded to indicate that he could start, and the staff of Pilishan ordered it. The exercise begins. The staff made a field phone call to notify the to headquarters. General Bram at his own headquarters ordered it. First hit a base number of artillery shells and let them taste the power. The first line positions of the 3rd Division immediately fell, blowing up the defensive positions of the 3rd Division. The commander of the 3rd Division, Middeler, observed the artillery attack. Test my defense capabilities so that the artillery does not have to fight back. King's group saw the artillery attack at the observation point of the exercise. Bram's training is good, and the accuracy rate of shelling is still very high. The king put down the telescope in his hand and said, which was recognized by a group of people who also observed with the telescope. After the shelling was completed, the staff gave data based on the results of the shelling. The 3 divisions and 2 regiments guarding the front-line positions lost 5%. A staff officer ran over to report to the king and his party, and General Bram ordered a regiment to try to attack. Everyone raised their binoculars and saw a group of people spread out in a skirmish line in front of the position point. The 3 divisions and 2 regiments entered the first line positions after leaving 5% of their personnel and equipment point. After the 5th division launched a tentative attack, the front line positions were full of firepower. For the soldiers of the 5th division who had not experienced the first battle, they were stunned to see the metal storm on the opposite side, thinking that fortunately this was an exercise. This made the king and his party go numb. This firepower density is too high, and the 5th division will suffer heavy casualties, an observing general said. General Bram felt a headache when he saw the loss. A regiment's tentative attack lost 40%. This was because the regiment commander ended the attack early and withdrew ahead of schedule. Depending on the situation point, it seems that we can only use shelling first. Their firepower is too strong. Detour attacks are not very useful to their positions now. The chief of staff said his opinion. Now I can only focus on attacking. I will leave 2 bases of shells and the remaining 3 bases of shells, or aim at the right position where the terrain is relatively flat and shoot at high speed. The pressure of the 3 regiments opened a breakthrough for me, and the follow-up troops will expand the results after opening the breakthrough. General Bram was also a decisive man who intuitively found the only way point. The artillery of the attacking side rumbled again. This time, in the face of strong artillery fire, the right side of the front line was blown to pieces. After seeing it, General Middelor, the headquarters of the defense, ordered the artillery to counterattack, and then transferred a regiment to the right position of the front line to strengthen the defense point. Seeing the reinforcement, Bram ordered 2 battalions of artillery to counterattack, while the rest intercepted the shelling and launched the attack simultaneously. The commander of the troops on the right flank had a bad look and mobilized a battalion of reinforcement. The commanders on both sides are making moves, and it's not fun to have you come and at the moment point attack. One of the staff officers shouted, and the 3 regiments rushed into the front line with casualties. Order the follow-up troops to keep up, and the artillery blocks the reinforcement on the opposite side. General Bram ordered. At the headquarters of the 3rd Division, General Middeler was also giving orders for the artillery. Intercept the opposing follow-up troops. The right position became the focus for a while, and finally the 5th Division finally won the position with the advantage of the number of people point. This is too many casualties. The chief of staff asked with some uncertainty, looking at the casualty figures given by the exercise staff. The 3 regiments that attacked first suffered half the casualties. The following 2 regiments were intercepted by the artillery and suffered 1/3 of the casualties, plus the one who tried to attack 40% of the casualties. The artillery was also lost 40% by the opposing counterattack, and the entire division was about 40% casualties. If you win the first line position, you will lose 40%. How to fight the second line position? The deputy division commander said, and General Bram was also having a headache. According to the regulations of the exercise, if the casualties exceed 70%, the attack has failed. According to the current situation, the second line cannot be attacked. There is no other way now. We can only take a gamble with the whole division, and still open the way for the artillery to focus on smashing the shell, but leave a regiment for us to attack, and we also make a detour. General Bram said with a twinkle in his eyes. At the headquarters of the 3rd Division, General Midler was also watching the staff report the casualty figures. 60% casualties on the left flank, 30% casualties in a regiment of reinforcement, and almost no casualties on the right flank. 1/3 of the artillery losses, and 20% of the entire division. Midler the general was very satisfied with the results. Strengthen the withdrawing troops from the front line to the second line, and don't use the reserve force. It is estimated that General Bram will surprise us. Bram's deployment was in place quickly, and he was still the artillery leader. Bram waved the whole division with a big hand, and the second line positions immediately felt the pressure. Midler also lined up the reserves, but kept 2 battalions just in case. At this time, an unsatisfactory regiment of General Bram attacked from the flank point. I expected that you would not be so honest, and the 2 battalions immediately reinforced. General Midler said with a sneer. In the end, the 5th Division lost 70% of the casualties, and the 3rd Division also held the victory with 30% casualties. Thank you too for bringing us a wonderful exercise. After the exercise, the old king said to the 2 commanders, "Thank you, Your Majesty, for coming to observe this exercise." The 2 commanders replied, "I hope tomorrow's exercise will be as exciting." King Carol said to the Commander-in-Chief Preshan, "Your Majesty will be even more exciting tomorrow." Preshan responded. Chapter 18 Exercises. The next day, King Carol and his party came to the exercise headquarters and continued to observe the second half of the offensive and defensive exercise. Those present in the defensive operations of the reorganized army have a deep understanding. Today, the main observation is how much the offensive capability has been improved. The 2 commanders, Bram and Midler, were praised by everyone for their wonderful performance yesterday. Now the 2 armies exchange positions and start a new offensive and defensive drill. At the offensive command, General Midler, commander of the 3rd Division, was deploying his plan. The artillery regiment used 75 artillery guns to cover the first line positions first, focusing on the right wing position, and the 105 artillery pieces were waiting for a counter-attack. 1 regiment waited for the firepower to cover and then tried to attack. As the order was issued, the artillery shells flew to the defense's first line positions, and the exercise staff observed the drop of the shells counts the loss of the line. Our artillery is less caliber than the 3rd Division, and the artillery should not counter-attack. General Bram ordered the staff behind him, after seeing the situation of the first line positions at the headquarters. The exercise command observed the shelling, no worse than yesterday's 5th Division. Midler is also a very capable person. The Minister of the Army said to the Chief of Staff beside him. After the shelling is over, the staff will report to the exercise command. After calculating the damage, the first line positions lost 7% of their combat power. "Why is there more than the 5th Division yesterday?" a general asked, and the exercise staff replied, "That's because the 3rd Division has more artillery than the 5th Division, and the 5th Division has more frontline personnel." Reaching 3 regiments. Seeing the end of the shelling at headquarters, General Midler ordered a tentative attack by a regiment. After the group dispersed in front of the defensive position, they started a tentative attack, and gunshots were heard all over the position. Compared with the reorganized 3 divisions, although the 5th Division has more people, its firepower is still suppressed. The Madsen light machine guns that can follow the infantry charge, and the Markin heavy machine guns that can provide fire support in the rear, all allow the attack. Fang's advantage is obvious, which makes everyone in the exercise headquarters shine. General Midler, who was seen in the headquarters, ordered, "Let them withdraw." Then the group that tried to attack retreated, and the exercise staff also reported the losses of both sides to the king and his party, and the defending team lost 105 out of 5 attackers lose 15%. Looking at this report, a group of people are very surprised to know that 3 regiments are defending, and 1 regiment is attacking. "It seems that the army's attack has improved a lot after the reorganization," said the old king. Preshan and others also saw the huge changes in the army after the reorganization. Let's keep watching. It seems that the first line positions are guarding 3 regiments, so the second line needs at least 1 regiment. Does General Bram have 1 or 2 regiments? General Middlerow thought in the command post. Losing him to the attack, don't worry, most of the low-level officers have training records, and their combat skills have greatly improved. The artillery regiment was ordered to fire rapidly on the right flank. The 3 regiments focused on attacking the right flank, and told them to hurry. After the attack, the artillery regiment intercepted the reinforcement. Middlerow thought to himself. Then the artillery bombardment fell on the defending side again. After the artillery bombardment, a full 3 regiments attacked the defensive position. General Bram ordered, after seeing the battle ahead, give the artillery regiment an order to aim the artillery at the attack group and reinforce the 2 regiments to the front line. The chief of staff persuaded, if we break the front line position, we may not be able to defend the deep assault. General Bram told the chief of staff explain his decision. If you don't adjust reinforcement, you will not be able to hold it. Their firepower is too strong. The density of people retreating to the second line positions is too large, and the artillery threat is even heavier, and our second line positions will also collapse. The 3 regiments of the 3rd Division were already approaching their positions, and the artillery on both sides were also firing at each other. General Middlerow saw reinforcement on the opposite side. Move up the last regiment as well. The artillery regiment takes 2 battalions to intercept reinforcement. It seemed that General Middlerow was planning to strike with 1 blow. In the frontline positions, the 2 sides fought abnormally, and you came and went. In the end, the 3 regiments rushed into the position before reinforcement arrived. The right wing, who had been defending with superior firepower for a while, retreated. At this time, the reinforcement from the 5 divisions finally arrived, and one party was in a state of jiaozuo by virtue of the large number of people and the other by virtue of the firepower. At this time, the benefits of General Middlerow's letting go were reflected. 1 regiment joined the battle, and the balance of victory fell to the attackers. The defense was beaten back and forth. Seeing an opportunity, General Middlerow ordered the 3 regiments not to stop and continue to charge towards the second line positions. A regiment on the second line defense faced this situation, and it was also a headache, because the 3 regiments of the attacker followed the defeated troops. In the end, the 5 divisions failed to defend against the attack of the 3 divisions, allowing the attackers to win. In the subsequent maneuver of the entire division, the 3rd division also took the lead in arriving at the designated location to complete the exercise with excellent logistical support. This made the king and the military extremely satisfied, except that the price was too expensive, all of which met the military's expectations. At the summary meeting after the exercise, high-level military officials gathered together, and Edel also came to listen to the summary experience of the army. The chief of the general staff of Preshan began to summarize the exercise. My colleagues, I'm satisfied with this exercise, but we must also see some shortcomings. First of all, as our tactical unit Division 1, we will attack the defensive positions with firepower. There is insufficient power. This is not enough. Does the military want to assign 150 guns to the division level? Edel complained in his heart. Preshan continued, during the combat exercise, we should see that the troops are disconnected from the front and back, and we should strengthen the training. The reorganized division is much stronger than the unorganized division in all aspects, but from this exercise, we can see that out. The ammunition consumption is 3 times larger than that of the unorganized division, which is a new test for logistics support. From here, we need to strengthen the training of our army logistics officers. In the future work of the army, logistics support will be the department that tests us the most. At the summary meeting, Ploiesti said that there are many problems in the formation of the army during the exercise. Edel has no opinion on training logistics, etc. Edel really has an opinion that the firepower is not strong enough. 1 stop is enough, and now this equipment level is the maximum in Romania. All the powerful armies in Europe are at this level, and Preshan wants to make big news. After the meeting, Edel found the chief of staff and told him, the chief of staff now has the greatest strength in terms of payment for goods and finances. It is impossible to increase it for at least 10 years. Preshan replied quickly, Crown Prince, I mainly give the army an outlook. I have not thought about adding firepower. However, according to the standard of the exercise, the logistics may not be able to turn around during the war. Hearing Preshan's words, Edel thought of a good way to change the logistics. The idea, it's simple for a later generation. Chapter 19 Automotive Industry. Edel thought about the logistics of the car group of later generations. When he was watching TV in his previous life, when he talked about logistics supplies, there would be a picture of a long line of trucks driving on the road. Edel called the captain of the guard Karst and asked him to check the current car development. Since Carl Friedrich Benz built the world's first car in 1885, the automotive field has been booming, but now the car is still too expensive and can only be a toy for the rich and aristocratic. Not much for the army point, but first need money. Edel came to the office of Karoli and saw Prime Minister Stuli. Also point, Your Excellency the Prime Minister. Edel greeted the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Stuart nodded and saluted Edel, and the Crown Prince saw that the old king was fascinated by the telegram. Point, is there any news from father? Edel asked. Point, the government wants to borrow money because of its tight finances. Edel knows this is because he reorganizes the army and buys industrial equipment. It seems that he can't squeeze the government's finances. Edel thought and did not speak. Stuli saw that the Crown Prince did not speak, knew the embarrassment of the Crown Prince, and said to King Carol, Your Majesty, let me come over another day. Point, Edel said to old King Carol, after watching the Prime Minister leave. Father, I plan to build an automobile factory. The old king asked, why? I think this way. Now the horses used in the logistics and transportation of the army consume 3 times the number of people every day, and it is easy to reduce the number of people when maneuvering. The marching speed depends entirely on the horse's daily walking speed. The most important thing is that the farther it travels, the slower it goes, and the faster the transport capacity dissipates. However, the car does not have this concern, and can usually transport domestic materials. For many places without railways, it is a problem for the economy. Great help. Then how much are you going to invest in this? The old king asked. £500,000 is enough. Edel said. I'll let the chief prepare the money. You can do it. Karoli was still very concerned about the army, and he agreed with the Crown Prince's proposal with a wave of his hand, which made Edel very satisfied. Point, back in the room. After Edel's overall consideration of the current major car producing countries, the United Kingdom, France, Germany and the United States, the United Kingdom can eliminate the specialization of aristocratic cars non-compliant. France is now workshops, don't need to think about it. Germany is now able to make them, unable to produce it by themselves. The United States? Edel thought of a person who can find the best car leader to build his own car, and his concept is very suitable for the appetite of the Crown Prince. Standard Oil can think of a way. Edel asked Standard Oil to contact Ford on his behalf, to jointly invest in a company that makes heavy-duty trucks. The radio waves traveled across the ocean to the United States and then turned to Henry Ford's desk in Detroit. For Ford, which is still building the Model A, it's a big opportunity to get out of the Selden Syndicate's patent tangle. In the United States, the automobile patent was in the hands of Selden Syndicate, and every automobile produced by the automobile company had to pay him the patent fee. Ford did not secretly produce it. It is a big matter related to the small company. Henry Ford did not dare to decide by himself. He called 10 investors to discuss the good news. Everyone was excited about the good news. Profit. There is no reason to refuse. Point, within 2 days, Edel received a telegram from Ford in person. In the telegram, Henry Ford agreed to build a car factory with the Crown Prince. In order to better negotiate this contract, he would come to negotiate in person. Point, more than 20 days later, Ford and his assistant met Edel. His Royal Highness is very pleased to meet you. Henry Ford and his assistant said after a slight salute. Mr. Henry Ford is very happy that you can come in person. Edel walked to Ford and said to him, His Royal Highness doesn't know what to do with what you said in the telegram, to jointly create a car factory. Ford asked straight to the point. I'm going to invest £500,000 to build this factory, Mr. Ford. You can invest 20% of the shares with technology. This will build the largest car factory in Europe. Your task is to design a car that is reasonably priced, simple to maintain, easy to use, and has a load of 1.5 tons. You have technicians to guide the workers in operating the machine, and we will send people to Ford to learn your ideas. I don't think Mr. Henry Ford would turn down the offer. It's a surprise for Ford, which doesn't produce a Model T yet, and the Crown Prince's concept is also very much to his liking. It's just that the car focuses on manning into cargo. Now Ford's entire company is less than 200,000. The joint venture alone has nearly tripled Ford's assets. It was a good deal in every way, and Henry Ford was a little undecided, just because he was so good. Can His Highness Edel let me think about it for 2 days? Ford asked the Crown Prince, and Edel reflected that he was anxious and scared Henry Ford. Okay, Mr. Ford, think about it first. After Ford and his assistant left, Edel blamed himself for being too selfish recently. After walking out of the palace, the assistant asked Henry Ford, why didn't the president agree? The conditions are so good that God will be moved when he sees it. Ford replied, it's just too exciting, but I don't think it's real enough. Let's go back and study it again. The Crown Prince's conditions. Ford and his assistants returned to the residence to study Edel's conditions overnight. 2 days later, Edel saw red-eyed Henry Ford and his assistant again. Mr. Henry Ford doesn't look like you are in good spirits. Do you need a break? Edel looked at them with concern, which made Henry Ford and his assistant a little embarrassed. Your Highness, I have a lot of energy, and I have never been so full of energy. Mr. Ford replied with certainty. That's good. I wonder if Mr. Ford has considered the proposal 2 days ago. Edel asked the topic that he cared most about. His Royal Highness is very satisfied with that proposal. I think this is an affirmation of Ford. Henry Ford said firmly. The Crown Prince announced 2 days later that he will build Europe's largest car factory with Ford, selling the Model A and planned trucks. The funds all come from the Romanian royal family. Ford will provide 20% of the shares in technology and personnel, and the royal family will account for 80%. Ford will have new models in the future. The new company will have priority in European authorized production. Ford will hold shares. If sold, the royal family has the right of first refusal, and the company name is Volkswagen. Chapter 20, Inspecting the Arsenal. After Edel established the automobile industry, he discussed with the Chief of Staff of Prezhan about the plan to switch to automobile transportation and logistics. After research, the two found that replacing the logistical horses with cars would have an advantage in maintenance costs, and the horses were too edible. Moreover, the transportation distance can also be improved. A horse can be transported for a maximum of 40 kilometers in one day, and a human army can travel up to 100 kilometers. Horses are very delicate creatures. They must be carefully transported, and continuous marching will cause great damage to horses and serious fat loss. Cars do not have the above problems. In theory, a car can travel 200 kilometers a day without any major problems. According to the current car standards, it is easy to repair and go on the road again. And a large number of artillery, ammunition, machine guns, and various logistical items can be taken away by cars. It is calculated that a division needs to reach 800 vehicles to achieve fast maneuvering. The maneuvering here refers to 60 kilometers per day, compared with the current European powers' marching speed of 30 to 40 kilometers. They are considered to be fast troops. It seems that the National Army plus several heavy artillery regiments need 15,000 vehicles. According to the agreement between Edel and Ford, the production cost of a van is now expected to be around £200, and the assembly line is also reduced to a maximum of £150, which is a higher cost than the reorganization cost. Edel and Prezhan were silent when they saw the cost they calculated. His Royal Highness, this is something the government will never agree to, and the country doesn't have that much financial resources. Prezhan took the lead. I know it can only be revised, so let's build a division first. The rest can only wait first, which will depend on the finances. It can only be done if it improves. Edel also had to give up this plan. After returning to the palace, the captain of the guard came to Edel. His Royal Highness heard from the United Kingdom that they have built a new type of warship using the same type of heavy artillery, which can run at a speed of 21 knots. Edel immediately thought of this after hearing this. It is a dreadnought, and it seems that the era of large ships and cannons has begun. The impact on the Romanian navy will not be too great, but the impact on the situation will be too great, and World War I cannot be avoided. What Romania has to do now is to strengthen itself in order to sell at a good price point. Edel, who felt the time was no longer for me, could only watch the great powers game in Romania. After the UK built the dreadnought class battleship, major powers such as Germany, France, and the United States all expressed their follow-up. Britain's main opponent, the Kaiser, announced that the Nassau class would also use a dreadnought design, and the United States announced that it would build the South Carolina-class battleship level as a template. Russia now says it has no money and will follow up when its finances improve. France is studying funding for the construction of the dreadnought class warships. Japan said that I would buy it back for research in the UK. Italy and Austria-Hungary said that you build it first and then look at it. Because of the controversy caused by the appearance of the dreadnought, there was a lot of uproar in the international community, and Edel was dazzled. At this time, the captain of the guard told His Royal Highness that the first phase of the arsenal had been completed. The military issue that Edel is most concerned about can be partially alleviated, and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince decided to visit the arsenal point the next day. Edel came to the arsenal on the outskirts of Bucharest, accompanied by the factory director Virisia, to visit the completed factory. The factory manager, Virisia, studied economics in Germany and later helped his father manage the family's small arsenal. He was very good at controlling costs and increasing production. Later, Edel borrowed money to build a military factory in Germany and merged several small factories in China. After finding that Virisia was doing quite well, he appointed Virisia to manage this large military factory. His Royal Highness is the main gun stock and gun body of the woodwork shop. Edel looked at the woodwork shop without a trace of beauty, and it was not much different from the woodwork shop in China in the 1950s. It is a brick and tile structure, and the wires are like spiders in the air, pulled around like a net. Take me to the assembly workshop, Edel said, feeling a little bored. Virisia took Edel to the assembly workshop and watched the workers assemble the parts into rifles. Edel asked the topic of greatest concern: what is the output now? Now, because the workers are newly trained, therefore, if the output is not high, 150 rifles a day is the current limit, Edel said after hearing Virisia's explanation. Now you have to train more workers so that they can master the work at hand as soon as possible. By the way, what about the current artillery output? Facing Edel's question, Virisia replied a little embarrassedly. At present, the heavy artillery workshop is still being debugged, the workers' requirements are relatively high, and the training has not been completed. The 75 artillery can now produce 8 guns a month, which is also the result of the unskilled workers. The 105 light howitzer is now due to the poor mastery of the workers. We haven't made 100 caliber guns, the main rifles, and the people sent by Germany are still doing the work. Our workers can only do it. Now we only produce 2 or 3 guns in January. The 150 and 210 are still being trained, and workers are not produced. Hearing Virisia's answer, Edel seemed to think that the arsenal would not be able to reach the projected output without 2 or 3 years of hard work. What about the production of machine guns now? Edel asked, seeing that the Crown Prince was concerned about the production. Virisia also told everything she knew. His Royal Highness, now we can produce 60 Madsen machine guns a month. We can produce 30 Maxim machine guns a month. 7.92 rifle ammunition can now be 3 million rounds a month, and machine gun ammunition can be 3.5 million rounds a month. All kinds of shells can do 1,000 tons a month. After hearing Virisia's answer, Edel felt that the production of ammunition was still insufficient, and the Crown Prince still knew that the ammunition was more complicated than the military. In addition to encouraging Virisia to train workers as soon as possible, it is also possible to consider the introduction of an ammunition production line. But now the government's finances are indeed too poor to have the money to do other things. Thinking of this, Edel is also a rogue. For the small country of Romania, the financial situation has never been good, and the Crown Prince said that I would spend money, and for the construction of the whole country. The Crown Prince, who was the author of The Street in his previous life, said that I would only say. PS The code in this chapter is quite depressing, and my head is getting bigger. I want to carefully analyze the unfolding of the follow-up plot. Chapter 21 Pipelines. In the following days, the weapons and equipment produced by the arsenal continued to support the smooth progress of Edel's reorganization plan. Edel is also overseeing other plans. Just as Edel was watching the great development of Romanian industry, the captain of the guard Karist gave him good news. Henry Ford built the truck Edel needed after several months of research, after returning to the United States. Now Henry Ford told Edel the good news. This news is too good for Edel. Now the car factories are all handmade cars, and they are all passenger cars, and the cargo car has not been paid much attention. Edel will open up this market first, and come up with mature products, to open up the market. Coupled with the sharp tool of the assembly line, most automakers can be blocked out. This can make a big difference in Romania's economy. A truck can carry 3 times the weight of a horse-drawn cart, which is a good boost for both dock transportation and factory transportation, which is no less than a gold mine for Edel. Edel asked Henry Ford to bring the prototype car and technical team, and he is now eager to see Ford's masterpiece. 20 days later, Edel saw the technical team led by Henry Ford in Constanta under the name of inspecting the steel plant. Mr. Ford didn't expect you to come here in person. Edel stepped forward and held Henry Ford's hand. His Royal Highness is very grateful for you to welcome our team in person. Come and see our baby. With the roar of a car, a relatively primitive truck drove up to Edel. His Royal Highness, let me introduce this car to you. His car is 4 meters long, 1.6 meters wide and 2 meters high. The cab can seat 2 people. The tires are made of hollow rubber and have a width of 20 centimeters to ensure that it can be used on the road grass. For driving, we use the carriage according to the request of the Crown Prince. The carriage is made of iron and wood and can carry 1.5 tons of cargo without crushing the axle. The 150 horsepower can ensure that it can walk like a fly. This is a perfect masterpiece. Henry Ford introduced Edel about his masterpiece. It's very good. How many kilometers does it run with full gas? Edel asked the topic of his greatest concern. We designed it with a big fuel tank to run 200 kilometers per hour at 40 kilometers per hour. Ford answered Edel's question. What is the maximum capacity of this car? Edel asked. We have done experiments to drive 2.5 tons of cargo to run 100 kilometers, but the car needs to be repaired after the run. Is there a name? Edel asked, pointing to the prototype car. I haven't given a name yet. I'm waiting for His Highness to go for this new car. Henry Ford gave Edel a little flattery. Then let's call it Dongfeng. I believe it can be popular all over the world. Ford and the people around him nodded in approval of the name. How much can such a vehicle cost now? Edel asked. A truck is too expensive to be used for transportation, and it can't be too expensive to replace a horse-drawn carriage. His Royal Highness, according to my calculations, now manufactures a truck like this, and the cost should be $1,000. Henry Ford said a little proudly. Henry Ford has his proud capital. Now a car in the United States sells for about $4,000. But that is all kinds of materials are used, high-end goods, especially sold to the rich. And the vans don't need those things, so that's why the price comes down. Edel thought it would be too expensive or not, and it would cost almost £260 to sell it for $1,200 at a profit. There will be no market at all, and it seems that it is necessary to enlarge the recruitment. Edel asked Henry Ford, do workers make cars now that one car is built and then another? Henry Ford was surprised that the Crown Prince would ask this question and answered truthfully. Cars are made like this now. What's the problem with the Crown Prince? Edel decided to tell him about Henry Ford's greatest creation, which made Ford stand out as the greatest man in automotive history. That is the great innovation of the assembly line. This is Ford's inspiration from the slaughterhouse, which uses what can be called a demolition line. That is, a slaughtered cow or pig carcass is moved in front of many meat cutters. Each cutter only cuts a specific some part of. Ford reversed the process, with the chassis traveling on a conveyor belt from one end to the other at a constant speed. Moving forward, the engine is gradually installed, the MT system, the carriage, the steering wheel, the instrument, the lights, the window glass, the wheels, and a complete car is assembled. The first assembly line shortened the assembly time of each Model T car from 12 hours and 28 minutes to 10 seconds, increasing the production efficiency by 4,488 times. Edel told Ford more about this plan. Ford was greatly inspired and very excited, grabbing Edel's arms and saying excitedly, "Your Highness, you are really a genius, so that I can make ordinary people can buy a car. You must know that a car is now a symbol of rich people's status, and ordinary people can't afford it. My dream is to make ordinary people use it. Get in the car." Edel thought in his heart that this is your greatest creation, and you don't need to thank me for making your dream come true in advance. So after such optimization, how much cost can our Dongfeng truck achieve? Edel asked. It should be able to reduce the cost to $700, and it will only get lower as it goes on. Workers only make one component. The requirements for workers will not be too high. It can reduce our training time, and it is also very beneficial to our expansion. Henry Ford said excitedly. The cost price of less than £145 makes Edel very satisfied, and this price can play a huge role in the transport industry. Apparently Ford was also outstanding as a businessman, and knew right away the power of the price. Can His Royal Highness hand over the authorization of the Americas to Ford for production? Ford also raised this topic in advance. Edel knew that what Henry Ford wanted to grow was the Ford Company. One was the president and the other was the shareholder. Everyone knew the choice. And Ford has really developed, and the Wall Street Consortium will not let this gold mine go. As a small European country, Edel can get benefits from the consortium, which is not possible for a consortium with a private army. Well, Henry Ford, I can sell Ford for $10 a car in the Americas, and your new models will be sold to me in Europe for $10 a car. Edel is targeting the Model T, and I believe that the current Ford won't default on its debts, and by the time it's grown enough to default, Edel will have made enough money. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Change. In the village of Canadal, Soderville was working in the fields with his father, Millerville, an honest farmer. His family has no land, and he lives entirely on the land, owned by the landlord, Baron Monriver, which is also a portrayal of the vast majority of Romanian peasants. It was a hot summer day, and sweat was running down Soderville's slightly tender cheeks. His father couldn't bear to see Soderville's tired face. "Let's take a rest first." The two came to the ridge and sat under the shade of a tree. Soderville took the water bottle that his father handed him and drank it in one breath. Halfway through, the two were resting in the shade. Soderville is 17 years old and the eldest of 3 children in the family. Soderville also has 2 younger brothers. One is 13 and the other is only 9, making this barren family extraordinarily difficult. Hey, Soderville, who was resting in the shade of the tree, saw his good friend Nisidel running along the road of the ridge. "Is something wrong, Nisida?" Soderville stepped forward to meet his good friend. Nisida's family lived on the other side of the village. His father Andrew used to drive carriages for the Baron's house. Merchant. In the end, he bought a carriage and transported it by himself. He was a lucky person, which made Soderville very admired. Have you heard of Soderville? Looking at Nisidel with a mysterious face, Soderville knew what his good friend liked and liked to inquire about this kind of news. Then share it with Soderville, and everyone in the village calls Nisidel the eavesdropper to describe his good friend. Nisida even told Soderville about his sister Minina crying with fright the first time she came to the fake. The two made fun of his sister because of this, and later their good friend was beaten to death by his father. His Royal Highness Crown Prince Edel has built a car factory in Constanta, which needs to recruit workers to earn 80 lei per month and earn around 120 lei for a good job. Nisidel shared his talent with Soderville. Knowing the secret, this news made Soderville's heart skip a beat. Young people love to fantasize about going out and making a world, and Soderville is no exception. When he becomes rich in the future, he will return to the village to become a respected master, eat delicious food, marry the most beautiful girl in the village, and give birth to a few cute babies. It was the best thought in Soderville's dream. After waking up, Facing the rough food, that is not enough for the hard work every day. The strong contrast makes Suodevil extremely uncomfortable. This is my chance. Suodevil silently shouted in his heart. Do you know how many people we need to recruit? Suodevil asked his friend. I heard that the factory is very large and needs 1,000 people. Nisidel answered uncertainly. I want to try it. Nisida, are you going to? I heard from my father that there was a lot of delicious food in the city, and there were a lot of lovely girls, and they were all well dressed. Nisidel recalled the few words his father told them. If only we could live like this. The two teenagers imagined the beautiful life of the city people. In the evening, Suodevil told his father that the Constanta automobile factory was going to recruit workers. Milevil looked at his child. Milevil had long known about Suodevil's restless heart. After all, he knew his son Moroofu. Just let Suodevil go out to meet the world. Milevil agreed to Suodevil to apply for a job in the factory. Like a caged bird released, Suodevil told his friends the good news. Knowing that Suodevil was going to apply for a job in the factory, Nisidel also shared the news that he had obtained the consent of his father with his friends. On the haystack, two young people imagined a better life in the future against the starry sky in the middle of the night. The next day, in the morning, Suodevil came to Nisidel's house, and the two would go to Constanta in Nisidel's father's carriage. Suodevil felt a little embarrassed, watching Nisidel being held in the arms of his reluctant mother. Father Nisidel spoke loudly to the mother and son. Time to go. Only then did Nisidel get away, and the two got into the carriage. Andruk drove the carriage towards Constanta. The next day, the two came to the Volkswagen factory in Andruk's carriage, and saw a crowd of people outside. Shocked for the two who have not experienced this. After inquiring, I found out that they all heard that the auto factory was recruiting workers, and the number of recruits was not 1,000 as they estimated, but 3,000. I heard that His Royal Highness the Crown Prince invested an additional 8 million lei. The two young people hurried to the line, fearing that they would not be able to take their turn. After half a day, when their legs were almost numb, it was finally their turn, and they saw the registration person sitting in front of the table. Name: Suodevil, Nisida. Home address: Canadal Village. Age: 17 years old. The two were registered and placed in the medical examination room. Took off the clothes, were checked for abnormalities, and then arranged to observe the vision, and finally lifted two 30-kilogram barbels. Popped her qualified stamps on a form identifying them. They were all done, and a foreman told them they were hired to work 9 hours a day, and had 4 days off a month. You can get food and lodging in the factory, but you have to deduct the cost of food, which is a bit cheaper than outside. Work clothes must be worn to work. Soon the two young men received a set of canvas clothes. He happily ran out and told Andruke, who was waiting outside. The boys look in good spirits, they have been accepted. Yes, Uncle Andrew. Suodevil took the lead. Dad, we can eat and live in the factory, we don't need to look for a house outside, and we only work 9 times a day. Hours, 4 days off every month. I will come back to see you. Nisida said, boasting. Work hard, guys, then I'll go back and bring good news to the Milevil brothers. Andrew said to them happily when he saw that both of them could be admitted. Afterwards, the two good friends went to the dormitory assigned to them. The walls were painted with lime, the bunk beds were made of wooden shelves, and the cramped room could only sit on the bed, which could not stop the two of them from looking forward to the future. Suodevil, are you asleep? Nisidel, who was lying on the bottom bunk, looked at the unfamiliar environment. No, Nisidel thinks that tomorrow is a new life, and can't sleep. Suodevil replied, staring at the white ceiling. I didn't expect this Volkswagen plant to be treated so well. Nisidel said. Yeah, let's go to sleep, we have to go to work tomorrow, and the foreman said that we will be fined for being late. Okay, let's go to sleep. The two slowly fell asleep. For Volkswagen to have world-class welfare benefits, it is inseparable from the idea of Henry Ford. When Ford proposed this working hours and benefits, almost everyone opposed it, believing that it was too generous for workers. Almost all of Europe and the United States work more than 10 hours a day, and some still work 13 or 14 hours a day. Workers receive only a paltry amount of compensation if they are injured. After knowing this, Edel firmly supported Ford's proposal. From the memory of later generations, Edel knew that the current situation must be changed, and Edel still knew the concept of later generations. In the end, Fort, backed by the Crown Prince, got all management to agree to the proposal. Chapter 23 Outlook. The next morning, Sodival and Isidore were awakened by a screeching bell. The two got up quickly and went to the playground after washing up. This is what the foreman told them yesterday. Seeing the crowd standing everywhere on the huge playground, and a row of strong men in white shirts standing beside the high platform of the playground, the two young people hurried over at this time. A tall and strong man with a big iron horn stepped onto the high platform and shouted, "Everything is quiet." The crowd quieted down immediately. Looking at the people on the high platform, the strong man looked at the crowd below and introduced himself. "My name is Veresi, and I will be your chief instructor for the next 2 months. I hope you will not miss me in the future." After speaking, the strong man named Veresi looked at the crowd under the stage like a beast. Looking at the fierce and vicious man's eyes swept across the crowd. Everyone lowered their heads without daring to meet him. Satisfied with the effect, Veresi shouted again to the crowd, "All of you must learn discipline before you become workers. That's what we exist for. I'll get rid of your laziness. If you can't get it right, I'll be happy to help, but you won't like it." Later, Veresi took his men and began to train the workers during the noon break. Everyone who participated in the training had sore backs and legs, and Sodival and Isidore also found a shade of a tree to sit down and rest with tired faces. "The one named Veresi is better than Mordo of the Baron Monriver's house," Isidore said to Sodival. "The Mordo in their mouths is the #1 thug of the Baron Monriver. It is usually not seen that when he defaults on the debt and rent of the Baron Monriver, Mordo will make the delinquent person regret it for a lifetime. He is a famous person in their local area. Does the Mordo you mentioned have a scar on his forehead?" A voice sounded behind Sodival and the others. "Yeah, how do you know?" Isidore blurted out before looking back. "That's because his scar was in my hands, and he failed the training." The two young men ran away when they saw Chief Instructor Veresi standing behind the tree. A pair of funny little guys. Veresi looked at the two young men running away. When the two vigorous young men were being severely drilled, the chief of the general staff was also complaining to his friend Prosi. "Can't your school, Prosi, train more junior officers? Now it has dragged down the reorganization work." The subject of Preson's complaint was sitting on a chair, stirring the coffee in his hand slowly, as if he was sipping coffee in a cafe. Seeing that there were so many Prosses in front of him that he didn't care about, Preshan lost his temper and knew the character of his friend very well. Prosi is the one who gets just right, no more, no less, as long as you don't ask too much. Every time he sees him doing things so slowly, Plishan wonders how he can be friends with him. If the outside staff saw this scene, they would think that the chief of the general staff had been replaced. Who in the army does not know the prestige of General Preshan? It was brushed out by senior officers one by one. Now on the surface, he is #2 in the army. In fact, Preshan, who is in charge of the reorganization work, is now the #1 boss in the army. Wherever he goes, he is majestic and his demands must be implemented. Pilishan school can only train so many officers, and if there are more, the quality will decline. It's not cost effective. If there is a shortage, you can ask the Crown Prince for someone. Prosi complained after drinking a sip of coffee. These sycophants of the logistics department, even coffee is the best for the chief of staff. You should criticize them. Preshan looked at his friend, dumbfounded. The majestic chief of staff criticized the logistics department because of coffee. Laugh out your teeth. The chief of staff was aware of Prosi's hints. That's because his friend doesn't know the Crown Prince well enough, and he doesn't dare to spread the character of the Crown Prince indiscriminately. According to the current tactical requirements, the requirements for lower level officers are also getting higher and higher. In this regard, you need to rely on your school training and military drills to keep up with the pace of the times. Preshan said something serious to his friend. I know, but you know that officers with short-term training will not help them improve their technical and tactical level. They are used to doing things according to the original plan, and they will only follow the steps for new weapons and technologies. Yes, it is said that most of the low-level officers are no longer up to the times. Prosi commented on the training officers who were struggling under his own hands. Prosi, your mouth is still so ruthless. Prezhan continued to say, while looking at his friend. I know that the current semi-annual training of low-level officers cannot change the shortcomings of poor technical and tactical skills. You also know that an officer has to study in a school for more than 2 years before he can play his role. Most of these trainings are now substitutes. It's best to take military courses from elementary school. Romania can't wait now, as can be seen from the reorganization of the army by the Crown Prince. After explaining, Ploiesti gave his friend a hint. In fact, this has already violated the principle of Prezhan himself, but no one can say anything about a small change to his best friend. Ploiesti, you need to increase the funds for me, otherwise I can't guarantee that the officers trained by the school can meet the needs of the army. Principal Ploiesti finally remembered his mission. For the current principal of the Bucharest Military Academy, it is only natural to have funds matter. Okay, I'll sign your application form. Ploiesti, you eat and take it here with me. I feel that you are my immediate boss. Prezhan laughed and looked at his friend. So knowing me is your greatest misfortune. After drinking the coffee in his hand, Ploiesti stood up and handed the application documents to Ploiesti. The chief of staff quickly wrote his name on the signature box and handed it to his friend. Ploiesti looked at the signature and put it away with satisfaction. I won't bother you anymore, Prezhan, goodbye. After saying that, Ploiesti waved to his friend and walked towards the door. Goodbye my friend Ploiesti. The chief of staff also responded by preparing for his work. Ploiesti walked to the door and suddenly turned around and said something to his friend. Prezhan has too many officers who have returned from training in Germany, which needs attention. After speaking, he opened the door and left. Prezhan knew that with the presence of officers and advisors in Germany, the voices in the army favoring Germany were getting louder and louder, which made him a source of unease. He also knew about Germany's intention to pull Romania into its chariot of. Prezhan himself also had a plan in his heart. In the future, these officers who stayed in Germany would be inspected, and those who had forgotten that they were Romanians would be assigned to remote departments. Only those who had their own country in mind could be reused. No one can control the path of his motherland, Ploiesti swears in his heart. Chapter 24 Diesel Engines. While chatting with friends in Prezhan, Edel was listening to the market research of Dongfeng trucks by the marketing department. Originally, Edel could leave this matter alone, but this is too important for the follow-up plan of the Crown Prince, so Edel needs to understand the current European market for trucks. Whether it can be an instant hit depends on this market survey. His Royal Highness, this is the survey report on major cities and ports in Europe. Francisco, the marketing manager of Volkswagen, handed the survey report to the Crown Prince. Francisco is a subordinate of Ford and has a good car sales performance, so he was transferred to Volkswagen for market development. Edel waved. You tell me directly, I won't watch it. Okay, Your Highness. Francisco cleared his voice and started reporting to Edel. His Royal Highness, this time we surveyed the major ports and big cities in Europe and randomly asked factory owners and terminal owners. I believe this survey report is credible, the marketing manager continued after signaling to Edel. According to our survey, 80% of the bosses and factory owners are interested in our trucks, and 30% of the respondents said they could buy a few to try. 50% of the respondents said people said they would buy it after seeing the effect, and half of them said that it would be best if they could try it out. After our investigation, the demand for trucks in the European market is around 50,000, and the long-term goal for 10 years is to 200,000 or so. What market price did you research at? Investigation done for £185, $902. A truck. It seems less than the price of 2 carriages, which is not expensive, Edel calculated in his heart. Now, based on this sales volume, can the factory be busy? We calculated based on 5,000 trucks from the beginning. After adding the additional investment from the Crown Prince, we can achieve 20,000 trucks, based on the efficiency of the assembly line in the United States. The annual output will still be a little short of meeting European demand. Francisco answered the Crown Prince's question. When the time comes, let's look at the sales performance. If the output is insufficient, the production will be expanded, the Crown Prince thought to himself. His Royal Highness, I have a new idea. I don't know if it is feasible. The marketing manager said a new proposal. Please tell me, as long as the company can grow, I'd love to listen. Edel said to the marketing manager standing in front of him. I think the company's trucks have been modified so that they can compete with manned carriages for passenger transportation. Francisco gave Edel a surprise proposal. This is a good proposal, and I completely agree. Let the company design such a large capacity passenger car. Edel was very surprised by Francisco's proposal. He didn't expect this American to have such a sharp insight. Of course, with a swipe of a pen, I agreed. Edel thought that Volkswagen could occupy the European market, which would bring great industrial development to Romania. History has also proved that the automobile industry can drive the development of all walks of life. This is why Edel chose automobile manufacturing as a basic industry in Romania. Now Edel is going to look at another department that can grow significantly. Your Highness welcomes you. When Edel came to the Bucharest Power Laboratory, he was greeted by the laboratory director, Marlonia. Marlonia previously did research on internal combustion engines at the University of Bucharest, but was less well known. When Edel asked the head of the guard to find a domestic internal combustion engine, he was discovered by Karist and introduced to the Crown Prince. Marlonia himself, like most scientists, is not good at talking. But if you talk about his profession, it's just eloquent. Marlonia is one of the few experts in Romania who specializes in internal combustion engines, who made Edel almost forget about the scientists who studied internal combustion engines in the past life, and the few who are still in memory are famous and have owners, and it is impossible for them to come to Romania. Edel could only be higher among the dwarfs, and chose Moronia, the most proficient laboratory supervisor. The Bucharest Dynamics Laboratory was just built this year. It was established by introducing technology and talents from Germany. What can be done now is to study the various existing engines, whether diesel or gasoline. Edel came over today mainly for the diesel. How is Academician Marlonia's current machine? Edel asked the laboratory director. In order to win over the few scientists in Romania, the Crown Prince made Marlonia elected as an academician of the Romanian Academy of Sciences, and he casually left the rest of his own. That point also contributed to the knowledge of diesel engines. Today is a small diesel engine improved by Academician Marlonia, based on the humble knowledge of the Crown Prince. Edel was also very interested in the improved diesel engine of Academician Marlonia, so he came to visit. His Royal Highness has improved the diesel engine according to your proposal. The volume has been reduced by 1/3, the power output has increased by 5 horsepower, and now it can reach 30 horsepower. I think it can be regarded as a first-class product. Academician Maloney replied. Prince's question. The group came to the front of this first-class diesel engine and looked at this huge diesel engine. Edel was silent. Academician Maloney is proud to talk about the data of this new diesel engine. This new diesel engine is 1.5 meters long, 0.8 meters wide, and 1 meter high. The power output is 30 horsepower, and it can work for more than 200 hours without failure. Edel found that it was indeed much smaller than the unmodified diesel engine next to it. Academician Moronia thanks you for your contribution to the kingdom. Can this diesel engine continue to be reduced in size without changing the power output, which will enable it to play a greater role? Edel asked Moro Academician Eagle. This is still possible. The Academician replied. Academician diesel engines now have two directions, large scale and miniaturized. I hope that academicians can do more research in this area. Edel told Academician Marlonia about the experience of later generations. His Royal Highness, I will do research in this area. Academician Marlonia replied facing the Crown Prince. It is self-evident what diesel engines will mean to Edel, who knows the future. Whether it is in national defense or society, Edel intends to use this diesel engine to promote agriculture, to mechanize farming, to push excess rural population to cities, and to drive farmers into cities, to work as workers. This is the best way to not use power over the big landlords in the country. The premise of all this is that the outbreak of World War I, factory products can flow to European countries. Industrialists can only hire more workers when they make money, pay higher wages, attract more people to the cities, and let the big landlords, because of the lack of people to use mechanical farming, Edel can do what he wants when everyone can taste the benefits. Chapter 25 Trucks. In 1906, it ended in the riots caused by the dreadnoughts in various countries, and ordinary people in various countries were still running around for their lives in the French port city of Le Havre. Brumank got up early in the morning to prepare bean fodder and hay for the 2 horses in the stable. Brumank was a freight carriage driver. He used to drive carriages for others to earn money. Later, he relied on his usual savings and thrift, and borrowed money from relatives to buy a carriage to earn money for himself. He usually makes a living by transporting goods to the wharf, and occasionally helps other merchants to transport goods, and his life is not bad. He also takes good care of the 2 horses who support his family, so every morning, Brumank gets up to fill the 2 horses with bean fodder and hay, and then eats by himself. Today, after Brumank finished feeding the stables, he saw his wife making breakfast and a pair of children playing in the yard, and a sense of satisfaction rose in his heart. Brumank is quite satisfied with his current life, with his own career and family, and can go out for 2 drinks every week, chat with his friends and spank. What else is there to be dissatisfied with? After Brumank finished his breakfast, he checked the carriage carefully, put on the horse and drove to the pier. Brumank, who was driving the carriage, thought about what his wife had told him this morning. It's time for his son, Frank, to go to school, and it takes a lot of money to get into a good school. It seems that he needs to pick up more goods in order to meet the needs of his family. Brumank thought secretly in his heart. While Brumank was thinking about his own thoughts, a roar of a car came from behind, and Brumank leaned the carriage to the side of the road. As you know about the car Brumank, there are dozens of cars in town right now, all of them owned by the rich and the capitalists. The owner of the terminal, Jane Victor, who works by himself, also has an old car, which is usually very precious, and never lets the workers touch it. The car drove over from the side of Brumank. Brumank was stunned when he saw the car in the past. Brumank had seen most of the cars in Le Havre, but he had never seen such a strange car. The first half is the same as a normal car, and at the back is a cargo compartment that is similar to your own carriage. Brumank dared to swear that he was absolutely right. It was a cargo compartment. Which rich man has a special hobby and likes to sit in the cargo compartment? Brumank took pictures of his cranky thoughts, and working and earning money is what he cares about. Brumank came to the dock and saw the strange car that caught his imagination parked in the cargo area. The stevedores all around watched the fun, and Brumank parked the carriage and walked over. Seeing that his friend stevedore Wilgard was also in the crowd, Brumank squeezed into the crowd and patted Wilgard on the shoulder and asked, "How is this going?" It was bought by Mr. Jane Victor to carry the goods. Hearing his friend's words, Brumank was a little unbelievable. A car as expensive as a car was used for transportation. It's unbelievable to have this odd looking car that doesn't look expensive at all, but it also costs hundreds of pounds to have it delivered. At this time Brumank heard the conversation from the crowd ahead. A stevedore named Andrew was talking to the crowd around him. "Today Broccoli was driving this van." "That's right, it was called a van, and I was surprised that it came." Just said, "Did Mr. Jane Victor change his car?" Broccoli answered me, "No, it's used to transport goods." "Then it must not be cheap," said Broccoli, "and it's not too expensive. It only cost the boss £185. I was surprised at the time. This car is so cheap, and rich buy one too. I don't think girls would turn down an invitation from a rich man. The group burst into laughter at this final one-liner. Someone shouted, "Andrew, you can never save enough £185. You should die." Obviously this was a shout from a worker who knew Andrew very well, and everyone laughed at Andrew. At this time, the whistle of the start of work sounded. The crowd dispersed to start a new day's work. Brumank was secretly anxious when he heard the conversation of the workers, and now everything he has is earned by his own carriage. If there is no carriage for transportation in the future, how can my family survive? While working, Brumank calculated the efficiency of this strange car in his mind, and the result was that he dared not face it. The load was 1.5 times his own, and the speed was twice that of his own carriage. If it weren't for this car, the intermediate failure is repaired once, and the transportation by your own carriage will be ugly. After work, everyone gathered around the truck and talked a lot. He runs really fast, and he has a lot of load. If it weren't for a few broken pieces of glass, it would be a perfect masterpiece. Driver Broccoli commented, after transporting a day's worth of goods, "Hey, Broccoli, you won't drive this car in the future." A clever worker stepped forward and asked Broccoli, "No, the boss mainly wants to test the performance of this car." The clever worker stepped forward to Broccoli Lee said quietly, "You recommend me to Mr. Jane Victor to be a truck driver in the future. How about I invite you to drink?" Broccoli replied after thinking a little. "At least 3 times. No problem." Another secret deal was struck point when he returned home in the evening. Brumank returned home with a worried face. When his wife asked what was going on, Brumank told his wife what happened during the day. Then what should we do with Brumax? If there is no income, the family will not be able to maintain it. Hearing the husband's remarks, the wife said worriedly, and Brumax thought for a while, and said it with determination. "Before the news spreads and the price of a carriage has not fallen, I will sell the carriage to Rowan next door, and then mortgage the house to buy a truck." The wife cried out of sadness when she heard that she was going to mortgage the house. Brumank stepped forward to comfort his wife. "Don't worry, I'll make more money with this van and we'll have a better house." Point the next day, Brumank found the Volkswagen sales store in Le Havre. "How do you sell the truck?" Brumank asked the Volkswagen employee at the front desk, and a salesperson stepped forward and asked, "Sir wants to buy a truck." Point yes, I don't know how you sell it, Brumank asked. Although he knew it, he still wanted to make sure. Point for £185. "We can train you for a week for free, mainly learning to drive and maintain." Point Brumank thought for a moment and said, "Can I make a deposit first? I won't be able to come and pick up the car in a week." Point no problem. Point Brumank, led by Volkswagen salespeople, signed the pre-order contract. "When I got home, I drove my carriage to Rowan. Fortunately, the news has not yet come." Brumank sold his carriage and 2 pack horses at the market price. Thinking of the horses he took care of had been sold, Brumank also had a lot of back and forth in his heart. Back home and mortgaged the house to the bank. Brumank, with enough money, drove a Volkswagen van back home a week later. Neighbors also talked a lot and were surprised by Brumank's boldness. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.